we'll figure that out.
Yeah, we can figure it out.
They were asking till what time our stream is going to be on.
Yeah.
Mm.
Okay.
I think to do the call after.
We're live, by the way. So.
Oh, are we?
Just so that you know. So, well, it takes a second for it to come up. Okay. There we go. So, yes, it is live on YouTube as well.
Okay, so we need to...
I got to shut off. You're right. I should shut off my Slack, too. Well, actually, let me tell folks in the PHP channel that we're live so they can come join us.
What I wanted to say, yes.
Oh, see, you're reading my mind.
Yeah.
Okay. So if you're watching us right now, hold on a second. We got to do a little bit of admin here. Let's see.
Should I... yeah, let me forward the tweet again as well.
Okay.
To...
Okay. There. So I put it into the core-PHP channel if you're watching and you're in the Making WordPress Slack. So, and while she's typing, I'll introduce ourselves. Hi there, I'm Tonya, and that's Juliette. Whoops, this way, the other way. She is. And we get together and we do pair programming on the intersection between WordPress and PHP. We go through all different kinds of things, from the test to core itself to looking at cross-compatibility and cross-versioning and so on, and technical debt and so on. So what we have is we go through our different tickets. Sometimes we will already have pre-planned what we want to work on. Well, today is not one of those days. So because there's so many different things to work on, and we're probably, I think in this one, Juliette, we haven't talked about this yet, but we're probably just going to be taking a look at some different tickets because we do owe some reviews and so on. And then maybe in the next session, we can actually start working on a patch, whether we want to do the composer.lock or we want to start on splitting apart and doing namespacing of the tests themselves.
But yeah, because I don't think there was any movement on the tickets we worked on last time and left feedback last time. So there's nothing we can do there now to follow up.
Yeah.
Those were 2 tickets on the widget side of things.
Right. All right, good. Yeah. The chat's coming in. Hi, thanks for joining us. Okay, so let's see. Can you see the chat?
Yeah, I can see the chat.
Okay, good.
Jonathan Harris has joined us.
Yes, he is. All right, let's see. I was just pulling up our link. I'm going to share that here in the chat too. Well, maybe I'm not. Why isn't it pasting?
I don't think that link is public. That sheet is public.
I'm looking at the WordPress Trac
PHP.
Okay, sorry. But the other one, no, that's ours. All right, so let me prefix this for folks. Go ahead. There you go. Let me put it in. No. All right. Ah, you. All right, so if we look at the query, and I'm going to share that in the chat. It's not letting me share it. Daggone it. Okay.
You want me to screen share it?
Here, I can screen. Yeah, go ahead if you want to screen share the query itself. Because we fixed that from the last time that we got together. Okay, so we're going to pull that up.
With the PHP 8 tickets.
Yeah, you want to zoom in on that a bit so we can see it?
Yep.
Okay, let's see.
Is this better?
Yeah. So I was looking at to see if there are any, maybe you want to add in the milestone on there too on that query so that we can see if there are any that are urgent for 5.8.
I don't think anything is.
I'm looking to see. I think the only thing that's 5.8 is the one that I'm reviewing for Paul.
But that one will, things which can be committed will be committed. It's only tests, so that can be committed even in the feature freeze.
Correct.
And whatever is left will be moved to the next milestone.
Correct. Right. So.
Yeah, let's have a look at the 5.9 milestone.
Okay. And then we've got some on here that are future release too. Waiting review.
Yeah. For some reason, my internet is slow, or Trac is slow. I think it's probably Trac.
It usually is Trac.
Yeah. Okay. So there's a couple which have already been tagged for 5.9.
Yep.
But you know what? Let's just do everything. Remove the milestone basically, because it doesn't really matter then.
It does not, because we don't have anything that's urgently needing our attention today. So.
Yeah.
Okay. So let's see. I'm also going to flip back over to our to-do list to see if there's anything on here too. Sorry, everybody, that we didn't get prepared beforehand, but we had so much stuff we had to do before we got rolling, and we were still late.
We're both working on so many different things.
Yeah.
This is your screen now, or no? It's mine.
No, okay. That's yours.
Yeah. Oh, it's very confusing how with the delay. Because I can see the scrolling, which...
Oh, because you're looking on YouTube. Yeah.
Yeah.
Alrighty, let's see. Oh, I got moved into future. Why did I get moved into future? Okay.
There's one here which needs tests. Mm-hmm. The dash icons one is a new one, which could maybe we could have a look at, see what's going on there.
Let's open that one up and take a look.
Protected pages as well. Both of those are new. I'm just going to have a quick look to see if they're in our spreadsheet as well. 251 and 520. 520 dash icons is in our spreadsheet. 251, do I see that somewhere?
So the spreadsheet she's showing you is our backlog of things that she and I work on together when we get together.
Yeah, I think the password protected page might not have even have made it in the spreadsheet.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So which one do we want to have a look at?
Let's just pick one. You're pointing to it right now. Go ahead and open that one up.
Okay, dash icons.
Alrighty. Don't seem to be appearing with PHP 8. All right, let's see what they're saying.
So the ticket says that dash icons don't seem to be appearing, not done any troubleshooting, but I upgraded the server to use PHP 8 and most things seem to be working fine, but dash icons are not visible. Let's see, not able to test on a clean install at the moment, but if they are working, that probably means a conflict in the setup of that particular person. So Sergey actually tested it and said it worked for him. So this basically, can we create a different status for this? Yeah, no, it actually is already at report of feedback. But basically, we've now seen what it says.
Yeah.
At this moment, there's nothing we can do here.
Right. This is a close. So, in my opinion, this one's a close. I just tried two, and I cannot reproduce the particular problem.
Okay. So then, will you leave a comment suggesting the closure?
Yep.
And if once there is a situation where it can be reproduced, the ticket can either be reopened or new tickets can be opened with a clear case of how to reproduce the issue.
Absolutely. So anybody watching, by the way, we switched to different software today because we were having problems with Juliette's screen showing very blurry if you watched it last time. It's like, whoo, gosh, you can't see that. So we switched to different software, and hers, as you now see, you can see it. But I'm going to make mistakes, and because we literally just downloaded it and installed it, and now we're going to have to figure it out as we go. So if you see me fumbling around, well, sorry. That's the beauty of live, right? All right.
Yeah.
Let's see.
And I notice I'm not logged into WordPress yet, so I will do that off screen.
Whoa. Okay. I obviously clicked something that this is one of those examples.
What?
Ah, that's pretty funny. I switched the layout to something else. So sorry about that, everybody. Show current zoomed into apps. No, I don't want that. No, I don't want that. I'll get it back. Hold on.
I'll see it in a minute or two because I don't actually see it.
You will in a minute.
It would be nice if I could see what's going on live, but I can only see it
Oh
with the.
gosh, that is pretty funny. Let's see. Yeah, we're going to switch back to. All right, so with this one, please excuse me. Get rid of that. Come on. Well, while we work on that.
If you leave a comment on that one, let me open the next one and talk through it, read through it. Okay, so the
There we
report
go.
is protected page is not working with PHP 8.
All right, yeah, you work on that.
And that looks, again, the question was steps to reproduce the issue on a clean install. Does it still happen with all plugins disabled and a default theme? Because Sergey tested it and it seemed to work as expected. And the reporter says that basically with all plugins disabled, it works. So it might be an issue with one of the plugins they are using, plugin conflicts with PHP 8. That's something outside the scope of our sessions, but it's also something which should not be in core Trac, but should be reported to the plugin. So I think the same applies as for dash icons. Recommend closing this issue as not core.
Yeah, I'm typing and half listening, so sorry.
Yeah, that's okay. I can see what you mean with a weird screen now. I can see beautiful purple, red clouds on the screen and very small us and the screen share.
Yeah, in the stream, it's actually showing that ticket, that full screen. It's up there now, so at least there's that. Okay.
Yeah, so I think once you've left a comment on dash icons, you could probably leave the same comment on the password page.
I'll copy and paste it from that one to this one then. Okay.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so hold on one sec. What was the ticket number on that one too? So I'll go ahead and get it open.
The ticket number is 52251.
52251. All right. Good, got that one.
Okay. In the meantime, I will update our spreadsheet. So for dash icons, I'm gonna say done as in recommended close. No, not possible to reproduce. And the other one I need to see in. I'm pretty sure we didn't have that one in our spreadsheet yet, but let me make sure. Very sure. No, it's not there. So I'll add it. What does password protected pages? What sort of component? Oh, that's post, of course. Yeah, post. Okay. PHP 8.0, and I'm gonna move that to done with the same status. And I'm gonna add today's date as the last update date. Wow, that's very productive. Before we even really get started, we've already closed 2 issues.
Whoa! If only that were always the case, right?
While you're still working on writing that up and closing those tickets,
Mm-hmm.
I'll have a look at the list of tickets to see which other one would be a good one to have a look at.
Okay.
I don't want to look at the 8 ones yet because there's still 8 ones of the 8.0 issues, which should be done first.
Okay.
Blogger importer is not something we should be able to fix in WordPress core because that's something for the blogger. For the importer repo. And that's a whole different story. And that is a known issue. Basically, the importer plugin doesn't have all the different additions for the different, like Blogger and whatever, the different import functionality. So that repo basically needs to be expanded to contain all the code relevant so it can actually be maintained properly. And I think there's a project ongoing somewhere behind the scenes to make that easier. So let's not run interference with that project and let them do their thing.
Right.
Okay. Undefined property standard class slug. Second opinion has screenshots. Let me see what the status is of that one. And if it's in the spreadsheet. Okay, in the spreadsheet. Okay. We actually looked at that before, and the status is monitor and needs updated patch or close. So I think the last comment is probably from us, yes. So again, nothing we can do there. Other than that, we're back to the PHP stand issues, I think.
Yeah, I guess so.
Or have a look at named parameters. Actually, it might not be a bad idea to have a look at that patch I created for named parameters to see if we can at least get the first one in.
Okay.
Let me open that and talk people through.
Yeah, go ahead and do that. I'm finishing closing the second ticket here.
Yes, please. Okay, so name parameters in PHP 8. What this means is that up to PHP 8, all function declarations. Okay, so you have function declarations, you have parameters in those. Those parameters have names, but those names were only used within the function itself and only relevant for that function itself. They had no specific meaning outside of that. As of PHP 8, there is a feature called named parameters in function calls. That means that when you call that function before PHP 8, you have to put in each parameter in the position in which it was declared. And as of PHP 8, you don't have to pass the parameters based on their position. You can actually pass them by their name and in any different order you want to pass them. That also means you can skip optional parameters. So if there's like 2 required and 4 optional parameters and you only need the last optional parameter and not the 3 optional parameters before that, you can now call that function with the 2 required parameters and then use a name parameter for the optional parameter and just skip and not even pass those 3 optional parameters. This can be useful, and I can see situations in which this can be useful. But the problem with this PR in PHP 8 or this change in PHP 8 is that it now makes every single function declaration in for public functions in a project in a library part of the public API, which they previously weren't. What that means is that while parameters in function declarations might have names which made sense to the developers for the internal functioning, those names now have to make sense to external developers, to people using your API, because they might use them in function calls using name parameters. So a review needs to be done in WordPress of every single function parameter name to make sure they
Yay.
are actually sensible names, which are proper names for use in the public API. Now that's a huge job. It still needs to be done. It needs to be started. But before we even get started on that, there are a number of situations where name parameters can actually cause problems already. Even without, when you say we're not supporting it at all yet, but and we're going to leave all the parameter names as they are, because what made sense to our developers, it has to make sense to the extending developers, whatever. Even then, there's still parameters which are problematic. One, when you have a parent class and you have a child class, and the child class overloads a method from the parent class and doesn't use the same parameter names for that in that overloaded method. That is definitely something which can be problematic. A second one, and that's not so much problematic from a PHP point of view as it is problematic from a cognitive load point of view for users, is reserved keywords in PHP can be used as parameter names. In other words, if you have a parameter called default, the default keyword is used in switch statements and actually is a keyword in PHP and is often used with a colon behind it in a switch statement. So if you now have a default with a colon after it as a parameter label, it will just confuse people. So it's strongly recommended not to use reserved keywords in PHP as parameter names. So for those 2 points, a review or initial work has been done. The very initial work, and I think that's the one where I created a patch for, was, okay, if there are function signatures where a child class overloads a method in a parent class and the parameter names are not the same, we need to fix that. That's the patch I'm talking about to have a look at now. And where there is a list of those functions where reserved keywords are being used. I don't think there is a patch yet for that.
No, I don't think so either.
Yes. So does it make sense to have an initial look at this?
Sure.
Okay.
You want to give me the ticket number for that, and I can put it in the chat for folks too.
51553. Oh yeah, another one, call user func array. I hope we've called those already, but that's another one. If you pass an array to call user func array and it's actually a keyed array, those keys used to be ignored and are now used as names for parameter names. So that can really break things as well. Yay! Isn't life great? So let's have a look at the PR. And that PR is probably in need of rebasing. Let me see.
Probably so, yep.
Yeah, but I mean, I'll rebase it locally while we go through it. Basically, what I did there is I used some external tooling to create a list of all those parameter mismatches, parameter name mismatches with child and parent classes, and went through all of those. Then found that quite a few of those were actually using reserved keywords as well. So then I had to solve that part as well and find a sensible replacement name which would work for both the child as well as the parent and still not use a reserved keyword. Yay!
Yeah.
So yeah, so what I would recommend is actually go commit by commit for this.
That's
It's
kind of what
not
I was thinking.
yeah, it's not a huge PR, but it makes this PR is going to make a lot more sense if we go commit by commit. I created the PR, so I'm just going to go to the first commit and then let Tonya look at it and do her thing and comment and criticize, and I can fix things up while you do that.
Yeah. Also, let's keep track too of any merge conflicts too, or updates that need to be
Yeah,
done.
don't worry. The first thing I'm going to do at this moment is actually check out that branch in my local Git
Okay.
client
That way you're
and
ready to go.
rebase it. Yeah. Where is it? Here we go. Tell me if I need to scroll or if you're looking.
I'm actually looking over at another screen here just because it's bigger and
Yeah, that makes a lot of
all
sense.
right. So what I'm seeing then as I go through, I'll share a kind of think out loud to share my process with folks as to how we go through and do these. So the screen that she's showing you right now through GitHub, then I've got that open and I've got it open on another screen. So if you see me looking away, that's what I'm doing. And what it will do for us is actually show us what the changes are. Now, I'm going to go through and take a look. So what we see here is we see variables, right? The parameters themselves being called, one's called theme, one's called post, one's called tag, and there's a theme again. There's a user object, and so on. So just by going through and taking a look, we can start to see, okay, what is the rhythm and what's the pattern that we're seeing here? And then we can also see how it's been changed to item, right? So now we're more generic. These are items, right? And then instead of changing the code necessarily internally, then there's adaptations that's been added in some cases to take what it used to be called and then either reassign it, right, get it back to the same variable that then is used within the code itself. So let's just walk through and take a look.
Well, let's take one step back because I mean, when you look at the top of the page, these are all extended classes
Mm-hmm.
based on list table. If we look at the parent class, that's the actual list table. I think
Yeah,
the name
let's open
parent
up the
is
file.
actually, I think the parent name is list table.
Yeah, let's go back all the way back to the parents. And hold on one sec. Actually, I'm going to do this. I find it so much easier just to do it locally versus jumping through GitHub to take a look. Unless we want to look at blame, and sometimes that's easier just to pull it up on the screen. All right, hold on one sec. Okay. Yeah. So as Juliette had mentioned, then if we were to go all the way back, because this is extending off of WP underscore list underscore table, and if we go back in its inheritance, where it's extending from, they're called items. Okay, so we're trying to keep it the same, keep it the same, keep it the same, keep the signatures the same here. Plus, it also just makes sense in my brain. It's very generic then at that point. Okay. That way it can be reused over and over again. All right, so let's go and take a look. First one, single row, and I'm going to pull up single row. expand down the code. Is an item, yes.
That was my rebase saying I hadn't saved one of the conflicts resolved.
Okay.
But the conflicts resolved weren't actually bad. There was nothing I actually needed. Well, there was one where I actually needed to resolve something, nothing else. So that's good. So yeah, and as you see in the commit message already, we're basically looking at WP list table
Right,
single
that's where
row.
I'm at.
That's where the core of this issue is. And are you sharing your screen now or not?
No, you're sharing yours.
So shall I go to that file in the
Yeah,
WordPress read?
go ahead and pull that one
So
open. I think that will make more sense for folks because that's what I'm doing now is I'm actually looking at that class right now. And I'm looking for that method so that we could take a look at what its signature is in the parent.
okay, so I've got WordPress list table here, and the method we're looking at is single row.
Correct.
And yes, the parent uses the word item. And what you see in this first commit is that every single class extending this list table class has renamed that parameter to something else,
To something else.
which makes sense in the context of the child class,
Right.
but can actually cause a conflict because of the naming mismatch between the two functions, the parent in the parent and child class.
Correct.
An item is generic enough, which is why I've basically
Renamed everything.
renamed everything to item. As I didn't, if we look at the first change, you can then see that I straight away rename item to, create a variable called team, the old parameter name, and take item into that. The reason I did that is this is quite a long function or method, and to not cause a lot of churn in the code base. If I didn't do this new variable declaration, I basically would have to rename everywhere in this function where the variable team is used. I need to rename it to item. I'm perfectly happy to do that, but that causes code churn. It causes that blame isn't correct anymore because of a parameter rename.
Correct.
Which is the reason why I didn't do it.
Right. And actually, too, if you're inside of that method, there's another thing that we can think about is these were named specifically for the use case, right? So theme, post, it gives items very generic, but here now we're being very specific to say, what is it? Right? What is this thing? So
it makes sense to leave them be descriptive within the context of the child function.
I agree.
But still have the same parameter name at the top, and this is, I actually put that in the notes of the PR description. This PR fixes all known instance of parameter name mismatch between methods in child classes versus name used in the parent class. Obviously, this may not be true anymore because I created this in October, which is 8 months ago.
A long time ago, yes.
So 8 months have passed, and there may be new issues which have been introduced.
Yes.
But the notes I put on there were, whenever the parameter name, which was originally used in the method signature of the child class, was significantly more descriptive than the parameter name used in the method signature of the parent class, the parameter name in the method signature has been changed, but an assignment to the old parameter name is made near the top of the function to keep the readability of the rest of the function code intact.
Correct.
This also reduces code churn. That's basically what we just explained.
Yep.
And the other thing is, while doing these renames, I noticed that a lot of these functions violate the Liskov principle, by having covariant parameters while parameters are supposed to be contravariant. This is outside of the scope of this ticket, but it is a concern.
Yes.
And that it is a concern we need to address at some point.
Yes. And so let me just comment on that. What we do is when we find other issues that need to be taken care of, we do add notes to these PRs, and then we typically will then load it into our backlog. For this, right? You're in the code, you're looking at something very, very specific, and you notice, wait, how about this? That's the time to note it somewhere that this needs to be taken care of, because you may not come back to that chunk of code again for a long time, right? So we do these types of things, and you'll see our notes and stuff to remind us this needs to be investigated, or this needs to be looked at. Just kind of wanted to let folks know that.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, so I'm going back here now. So I completely agree with what's going on here.
Right. We're talking list of principle. What I mean by that, so if we look at the original method, it doesn't have a type declaration. It has a parameter name of item, and if you look at the parameter doc block, it will say object or array, which is seriously not a good idea in the first place. But okay, object or array. If we then look at that very first file where I changed it in the multi-site teams list table, it says that item, or team, which was the original parameter name, and we're now changing it to item, is of type WP team. It's a WP team object. It's more specific than the original.
Yes.
That's the thing about covariant and contravariant. This actually violates the Liskov principle.
Mm-hmm. All right, so looking at that particular commit, I agree with everything looks good in that particular commit.
Yeah, so I've basically changed everything to item when,
correct.
Yeah, when it made sense. And in this case, I think that's everywhere. I've basically added a variable assignment somewhere at the top to name it back to the original name.
Yes. Yes. And I really do like that it goes back to the original name for readability, but also understandability, that if you're at the top, you can clearly see item, you can see its description, you can see what's going on, but some of these methods are long. So if you're looking down deep into the guts of the method and item is there, you might be wondering, what's item? What's it relate to? So having something very descriptive like this is a theme, this is a post, really helps you to understand the context of what's going on there. So I agree with that. Okay, so that one's good.
So we basically have a similar, I'm going to click next. So we're going to the next commit.
Yep.
And we have the same
thing.
Why I did it this way. This is again WP list tables. I already have that one open, and this one is about the column default function. So I'm going to look for the column default function, which is right there below it.
And again, you can see that is again an item, which is an array or an object, right? Same signature there, and then it also has a column name being passed. All right.
Yeah, but it has item as the base name and then column name. And if we look here, column name is used everywhere, but item isn't. Again, Liskov principle, more specific object class names. It's a violation, but yeah. That's another concern, but in the meantime, it needs to be correct. Those variable names need to be fixed. And in this case, if like in that very first file, the name, this actual parameter is only used in one place.
Correct.
In the whole function, so I've just changed it in that one place.
Yeah.
It depends really what's being done with the parameter. If it's used in one place, I'll just change it. If it's used in multiple places and it's more descriptive, I'll do the assignment.
Correct.
And you'll see that throughout the commits, that for each situation I've made
you've adapted.
I've made a judgment call.
And honestly, if you look at those where it's one place, also those one places the code is very small in the method, which yay for that. So it's very easy to pop up to the top again and take a look at the doc block of what is an item there. All right.
Most of these are very, very small. There's only like in the WP post list table one where I did the rename.
Yep.
Because that's a longer function. That's the only one in this commit where I did a rename at the top.
Let's see. If we look at the one that's in, let's see, how many down? 1, 2, 3, the third one down. So the WP media list table.com or .com. PHP.
Yeah, no, but the WP, yeah, I got you.
Yeah, notice that one, we've got 2 places where we've renamed item on there. Right, so we've got it in the middle, and then we've got it further down, which is a different pattern there from the other where it was only one place. For that one, what do you think about putting the post assignment back up at the top?
I'd be happy to. I mean,
just for consistency.
Yeah, I mean, it's a 50-line function that will normally fit on one screen for people. Mm-hmm. It's not even 50 lines, I think, but yeah, I'm happy to put that in.
Okay, let's just go ahead and do that just for consistency's sake. Otherwise, we have to say if it's 50 lines of code or less, we'll do 1. If it's,
Okay, let me open up that file locally. Well, shall I move the screen to the next commit so you can...
I'm actually going down and looking at the others here real quick. Hold on just one second.
I didn't know where you were. That's okay.
That's good. That one's good. Yeah, and that change is consistent with one that's further down the list too, where right at the top we're saying item or post equals item. Okay, yeah, the rest of it all looks good.
But the one for post where I already did that was a much longer function, I think.
Yep, it is.
Which is why I did it. Mm-hmm. I mean, yeah, this function it's not even 30 lines, so it will fit on anyone's screen, which is why I didn't do it here. Mm-hmm. But changing that now. Post is item at the top, and then I need to change those two those two users back.
Yes, please.
I need to find them.
Well, yeah, while you do that, I will go ahead and go to the next one and just start taking a peek.
Please do. Actually, it's more than more than those lines, but still, it's not a long function. Okay, I've changed that one, and I will. I'm I'm gonna show you later once we finish the review on this particular PR how I will do the rebase and how I've done the commits at the moment.
Oh, okay.
It just as for fun.
Because that's how we roll.
Yeah.
That's the kind of fun we like, yeah. Let's see. Okay, the next one. Are you on to the next one yet?
I hadn't done next one yet. Do that now, so people can follow along on the screen. The next one is column CB. Mm-hmm. Again, still on that same WP list table. Okay, and it's actually right on below. The next line. In the table, in the class which we were looking at. So again, it uses item, again, object or array, and it basically just expects child classes to define it or not do anything with it.
Correct.
It's the column callback, I think.
Mm-hmm. Correct. Alrighty, let's see.
Yeah, it's a callback to display the column. You can see the HTML being generated, and most of these functions are not even 10 lines.
Yep.
So
Very
renaming
small.
made sense.
Yeah, very, very small. You can be at the bottom line in this method and quickly raise your eyes up to see the doc block as to what's the context.
Yeah. Yeah, I've just renamed within the function to item everywhere. By the looks of it, I haven't done any of the top of function assignments here
Yep.
in this
Well,
commit.
they're so tiny. Okay, this one looks good too. Next.
Okay, next commit. And the next commit again is in WP list table, and it's for handle row actions. So I will do a search for handle row actions, but then with the function keyword in front of it. Okay, and the original declaration in the parent class shows item, again, either object or array,
Yep.
and then column name or primary.
And primary, correct.
Yeah. So if we then go back to the PR, you see that I've done the renames, but I've actually done assignments more often here. The very first one is again already an assignment at the top of the function.
Yep. Now,
Um,
folks might be wondering why that first one, why is the assignment done after, further down in the code? And the reason is because notice that we have guard clauses in there that if it's not this, bail out. If it's not that, bail out, right? So there's no need then at that point to do this type of binding to a variable until you get past those guard clauses.
yeah, and basically you only need to do the rename just above where it's being used for the first time within the
Correct.
function, or where it makes sense at the top of a function where there are variable assignments, a list of assignments. But with those guard clauses not using the variable, we can do the assignment after.
Yeah.
It's also, it will probably actually save a little on memory usage, but not significantly, not noticeable. But if you add things up, it
Correct.
might still save off a microsecond somewhere,
right,
because memory usage is being handled better.
Right. So you do get a tiny boost of performance, and you might think, well, that's not a big deal, but core is big. So every place where we can do these types of little things of it's not necessary to do this memory assignment and take up memory and time to do it, even though it's tiny, tiny fractions of a second. Every single one that we go and move it to where this is where it needs to be done, up here we don't, adds up, right? So over time, we can start to make things just a tiny bit faster. And we're teaching better patterns for folks as well.
And obviously these assignments are newly introduced assignments, so you put them in the place where they're most efficient.
Mm-hmm. Okay, this one looks really good too. They're all put at the right place of usage. Yeah, and like you said, you did mostly assignments here, and that makes sense. Okay, next.
Yeah, they're larger functions. Next one up is
now we're going to a different one.
Class. The Walker class is that's a whole different matter.
Yeah, that's an animal.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So I'm gonna open that up in a separate tab. Gonna go to the Walker class now, if I can find it. That is.
All right, so and as the code reviewer, I'm doing the same thing. So this is how I would normally work when I'm doing a code review. I'm opening up the parent code, I'm looking at the patch, and then I'm comparing between and seeing.
I'll send you WP includes.
Got to get all the way down to class Walker.
Where is here? Yeah, WP includes the base Walker classes in WP includes.
Okay.
So where the first one is looking at the function called start element, and What was the problem parameter? The second one.
Correct.
Okay, so the second one in the original declaration in Walker is called object, which is a reserved keyword, soft reserved keyword, but still a reserved keyword. So the original one is not one I want to use.
Correct.
So here I had to make a choice. Okay, how can I still keep it descriptive, usable in all the child classes, and rename it both in the parent as well as in child classes? And I think I made a choice for data object because in the description it describes it as the data object.
It
So it
does.
makes sense to then use data object.
Mm-hmm.
Again, here, Liskov violations because it's being more specific instead of less specific.
Mm-hmm.
First, with using WP term instead of object. But yes, I changed it all to data
Data
object and
object. Yeah.
did in most cases, did the rename again at the top
Mm-hmm.
to keep the descriptiveness within the function itself, save for a few where well, it's a lot of renames. It's not actually a long function. I think I should probably do the rename at the top for the Walker nav menu checklist instead of the renames.
Yeah.
You agree?
Yes, I agree.
Yeah. So Walker nav menu checklist. I'm opening that up. Oh, hang on. I know why I didn't do it in the nav menu. Because item is no more or less descriptive than data object. It's not a descriptive name.
It is not a descriptive name, so
So if we want that to be internally a descriptive name, I should maybe assign data object to post, but then I would still need to
change everything.
change all the usage within the actual function.
Correct.
So that's why I didn't do the assignment at the top in this case, because item is no more or less descriptive than data object.
Right.
So do you still think I should change that back?
No, I'm actually thinking as I look at it as a data object to me is a little bit more descriptive than just item.
Yeah.
I mean, sure, putting
They
it in
mean
as, huh?
they mean menu item and not even just menu item. They mean a WP post object used as a menu item. So
That to me
yeah.
is confusing even
Hmm.
more.
It's because menu listings are saved in WP post as
Correct.
post objects
Correct.
in
Now,
the table. So
there
I
there is
found
an
it
there is an argument to be made that we could make it more descriptive as to what specifically is it. It's a menu item, right? So then that would
there.
help with the understandability of the code since we're here and he needed to do the reassignment. So what would you think of just going ahead and saying and making it a little bit more verbose?
Yeah, I'm fine with that.
Let's do that. We get an opportunity to make the code more understandable. Which item wasn't understandable? Data object. Still, you go, okay, what data object?
Okay, so let me make that change locally for now.
Okay.
I'm going to call it menu item.
Yeah.
You agree?
Yeah.
And so I'm going to reassign data object to menu item. And then within the function,
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to look for every single use of data object and replace it with menu item.
Mm-hmm.
And yes, there are some IDEs which will do that automatically. The editor I'm currently using does not do it automatically. So I will manually fix that. Done.
Okay, good.
Okay, so I will commit that.
All right. There's a couple of them in there too. Did you see that? Do we have the same thing?
Sorry?
There's one that's in Walker Nav menu edits, and there's one that's also in.
I'm going file by file. So this
Okay.
is, I've done one now. Will tell me the next one and I'll open it up.
Okay. You just did checklist. The next one is the class Walker Nav menu edit. That's also
Okay.
in admin
I'll add
includes.
menu edit. Where is it? And the editing I'm not doing on screen at the moment. But I'm scrolling down to menu edit now, which should be the next one. Yes.
Yes, that's
So that's the same idea again.
correct.
Data object and versus item, where item is no more descriptive than data object.
Mm-hmm.
So we're gonna assign to menu item at the top, and then all the uses of data object or what was previously named item in that function are going to be changed to menu item.
Correct. Right. So not only are we fixing the signature problem, but we're also then making the code more readable and understandable.
Even though it does make the commit slightly less atomic because we're doing two things instead of one thing.
Yes, we are.
Which is, yeah, which can be debatable. Let's put it that way.
In this particular case, because we're going and having to replace that variable through a long method in a lot of different places, I can see the use case for just going ahead and reassigning it to something that's more understandable.
Oh, yeah.
Otherwise, you're right. We don't want to be mixing PRs in their scope.
When you do search and replaces like this, you always have to make sure you limit that search and replace just to the actual function you're working in, and that you don't run the risk that you're changing the variable in the next function, which may not have this variable defined.
That's right.
So if you do use an IDE which can do it for you, so that might actually be not a bad idea to use.
Look at that for a tip for y'all.
Yeah, that's okay. I've done this one.
All right, we got another one. And once you commit and push. All right, let's see.
Well, I'm not pushing yet. I'm just committing.
What's the no? That one's fine.
So which one
That
is the
one's
next
fine.
one?
That one's fine. Hold on, I gotta scroll down to it. The next one would be down to Walker-nav-menu. There's another menu item.
Mm-hmm.
And we can see then too, as a code reviewer, we can also see that there's a consistent pattern to things, which really helps in code reviews. When you start to change your patterns and how you're doing things, that really is a red flag for a code reviewer to stop and go, wait a minute, up here you did it this way and down here you did it that way. Why? Why did this happen? Right?
And that's why I explained that in the PR comment.
Mm-hmm.
Why I made different choices depending on the situation.
Exactly. And that's a perfect, folks. If you're doing that, you can get very verbose in your commit messages to give more context and share more information of the why. Why did you do it that way? Why is this necessary?
Okay.
By the way, that's the last one that needs to be changed.
For this particular commit.
Yes.
The fun thing is those names are also used in doc blocks for the filters which are being called. So now I have to realign the doc block comments as well.
Yeah. Oh, I do want to talk about the last parameter too once you get done, but I'll wait till you're done.
Yeah, if you don't mind, I'll be done in a moment.
Okay, I'll take a nap while she's doing that. So.
Why?
Just kidding.
I bet you can explain something in the meantime, something else.
Oh, sure, put me on the spot.
Yeah, of course. I'm actually changing code here.
I know.
So of course I can put you on the spot because you are not doing that.
Oh, goodness.
We should run before I actually push it up, I do want to run the unit tests
Yes,
to
please.
make sure I didn't make any mistakes in this, but
Yep.
that's for later. So first now we're going to scroll down to the last one where you said there was still a question or a remark.
Yep.
Here.
All right, so the very last one now, this is for everybody, this is the parent class, right? And we see we've renamed this to data object, but I want our eyes to go right to that very last parameter, current object ID, and then kind of look up at all the other implementations. They're just ID.
Not necessarily. The one straight above it that actually says current page.
Yeah, there you go. There's differences here. We got current page, we got just ID.
Yeah, so that one is another one which needs fixing. And
Yep.
why didn't that get flagged? That's a good question. Why didn't that get flagged?
Yeah, why didn't it?
Because, yeah, as I said, I used automated tooling to get the initial list of which things needed fixing.
If it's
So we
not being used,
have ID, we have, what are the other names? ID, again ID, one more. Yeah, most of the time it's called ID. There's one called current page ID, and there's one
called
as in
current
the parent
page.
class current object ID. So what shall we do with that?
ID makes sense to me. What to you? I mean, it's shorter.
Yeah.
In our brains, when we look in WordPress, we see ID and we think of just that, right?
But it is less descriptive.
It is less descriptive.
Because ID can be anything.
It can be anything. ID of the current item. So item ID.
But then that would make sense if the... Okay.
Wait, we've changed item. Yep.
Item doesn't exist anymore.
It doesn't exist.
What is the item? So data object and current object ID actually makes sense.
It actually does make sense. Yep. It's more verbose, but it makes sense. So there you go. I think we answered that question.
Yeah, but it's not even so much about answering that question. It is also about, we've discussed the reasoning of why we're going to change it to what the parent class was doing.
Yep.
And that is the important takeaway from this. We're not just deciding on a whim what it should be.
No, we're debating it and trying to find the right solution for it. Yeah.
So now I've opened all the Walker files in my PC. Okay. And I'm going to all the function declarations, and everywhere where it says ID instead of current object ID, I'm going to change it.
So just a reminder for everybody of what we're doing. We're making, we have a parent class that has the parent methods. We are extending in different places off that parent class in the different methods, and we're making sure that the parameters match between the child that's extended and the parent. We need to make sure that they match that parent, and that's what we're doing here. Is we saw that the IDs were named different things.
Yeah. Okay. First one done. Next one. Because again, obviously ID is much shorter than current object ID. I have to realign all the docblock comments.
Yes, you do. Tonya, you're causing me more work.
No, that's not what I'm saying. It just
I know.
means
More
when you do PR, you make sure it's actually done completely
correct.
and not half assets.
That's
And
right.
that something like this doesn't matter. This is interesting because when I now do a search on class walker nav menu edit, it says at the top it's not used. It is actually used.
Well, there you go. Now we can fix that too. There.
It's used as part of a do action call, as in it's a parameter passed to do action.
Yeah. So therefore, it is used.
But it's not used in the actual logic of the function.
It is
But
not.
it's just passed in a do action for other plugins or anything which hooks into this to receive.
Same with the args too.
Yeah. So okay. So let's just copy the descriptions from which are used for the action.
Action and put those back up there because that's the
Yeah.
context of the two of those.
Yeah, instead of saying not used, because that's just not true.
Correct.
Okay, so that's the next one done. There's so many more to go.
Yeah.
You did choose one of the bigger ones, of course, to do this.
Yeah. You're welcome.
Yeah, I do love you.
Ah, yeah. And of course,
Yeah.
it happens to be when you're driving, right?
Ah, that's not really a consideration.
Ah. Okay, let's see. I'm just gonna keep poking since this one's kind of big. I'm gonna go through and see if I see anything else while she's doing that.
Yeah, this one's interesting also because it actually. Oh crikey! Oh bloody hell!
What?
Sorry. Please have a look with me at Walker Nav menu.
Okay, I'm there.
Yeah. So Walker Nav menu. Let me pull it up on the screen as well, so people can look with us.
Wait, why are args null?
That's not even what I'm looking at. Okay, so I'm renaming ID to current object ID.
Yeah.
And then I did a search for ID within this function. So let's do that here on screen as well.
Go for it. Show everybody what we're talking about.
And this is what I encounter. ID from the original function declaration, the parameters passed into the function, is not actually being used.
Nope.
But something else is being assigned based on a filter which doesn't actually get the original object ID passed in. It gets past the data object ID, concatenated with menu item, but it's reusing that name for something else. This is something which is extremely confusing because you have ID at the top of the function defined as one thing, and then in the middle of the function,
It's
that
something
same
else.
name is getting reassigned to something completely different.
Correct.
So I want to rename this parameter because it's not the same parameter as that current object ID.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not going to rename it to current object ID, but I do want to rename it because it's just confusing.
Yes.
But it's less confusing now. I've renamed the parameter at the top.
Correct. And the renaming of that ID, because it's not one of the parameters in the method, then would be outside the scope of what we're doing
Yeah.
here in this PR. So
Correct.
that would be a separate one.
Yeah, but you can understand why I said, hang on,
Oh,
look, wait.
definitely. Definitely. But then,
This is one of those what the fucks in WordPress code where,
yep.
yeah, wait.
But see, I'm glad that you said that too, because my eyes immediately went to, wait a minute, why is that null also for the args? So yeah, another thing
Yeah.
for us to take a look at.
Yeah, actually, let's have a look at Walker. Yeah, that should definitely not be null because the original declaration has an empty array.
That is correct. So while you're fixing the other things, I'm going to go through and double check all of those to make
Yes,
sure.
please. Yes, please.
See, something so innocent as, well, there's just one place in a PR. No, it ends up being there's multiple things to do.
Yeah. But hey, it's WordPress code. What the hell did you expect? Sorry,
Do I have a bump bump somewhere? Yeah.
you might sound cynical, but yeah, we've been
Burn.
working on code for a long time, and you get cynical at some point. Now, what was this called? This one called originally? It was called current page, and that's actually used. Oh, great. I have one here where the doc block comments are getting a bit long, so I should probably spread them out over multiple lines. They're getting long because they have to, they start at a place later in the, because of the longer parameter name. Which will make the diff more confusing for people to look at, but it's also the right thing to do to then realign stuff and to spread it out and not make the line lengths ridiculous.
And so folks know too, you're also making the job of the core committer easier too, because it is something that has to get done. So they're either going to come back and tell you you need to do it, or they're going to have to do it. But it's something that's got to get done.
Yeah. Yeah, that's all the whole thing with the realigning anyway, and making sure the doc blocks are updated as well, because it needs to get done.
Right.
And otherwise, we're just creating more technical debt instead of reducing technical debt.
Correct.
Which is obviously the target of this exercise.
Exactly. So if you touch it, take the time to make it better.
Yay.
Matter of fact, that's something I used to teach to all of my engineering teams is every single time, if you always get in the habit of everything you touch, make it better, then you're constantly working on technical debt, just constantly working on it. So
there's a word for that. It's called Girl Scouting.
Yep.
Or Boy Scouting.
Or
if you're
Boy
so
Scouting. Yeah.
Yeah. The mantra of, leave a camp place cleaner than when you
Then you
arrived.
found it.
And that translated to IT means whenever you look at particular bit of code, make sure you leave it cleaner, better than
And it
when you
was
found
when
it,
you
when you
found
started
it.
working on it. And at the same time, you do always have to um, make a judgment call, like, does this still belong to this PR? And
Yes.
I'm not making things more confusing if I do this by adding too much in one PR.
Right. And at that point, you're there. That doesn't mean put it in the same PR. If it's out of scope for that PR, open up another one, open up another ticket, open up another one, and do the work because you're there. I will guarantee if you think you're going to come back and do it later, you're going to forget because there's so many other things that you're doing. So once you touch it and you're there and you see a problem, let's fix it.
I totally agree.
Mm-hmm.
And before I actually push this later on,
Yeah,
I do want to review my own work. I'm committing them quickly now to make sure they're, small commits I can squash into the original PR easily.
right.
But I do want to review to make sure that I didn't do any mistakes with the replacing, which is way too easy to do while we're talking, as in
Yes.
making mistakes.
Well, and then once you push, then because a lot changed in this one, we'll both go back together again and take a look at it too.
Yeah,
So,
yeah, absolutely.
yeah.
So I'm gonna commit this because I've finished this now.
All right, good.
Um,
While you're doing that, let me tell everyone who's watching, one of the reasons why we wanted to let you into these sessions is she and I have been doing these pair programming sessions for a while, but we thought there's so much that we share and talk through, not only in deep engineering concepts, but sharing our methodology of how we do things that we thought would be valuable for the rest of the community too, to be able to take a look inside and hear. So we think out loud on purpose. And sometimes you'll notice we go a little bit extra that we're teaching you things, and that's on purpose for the intent of why we wanted to invite you into our bi-weekly-ish pair programming sessions. So I just wanted to make sure if you're new to this, why we're doing this.
yeah, and we mentioned this last time afterward, that we both, without discussing this in advance at all, we both noticed ourselves stepping into teacher mode.
Yep.
As soon as we started streaming, between the two of us, having done this a number of times, we only say half a word and the other knows what you're talking about.
Yep.
And now we're expanding on the explanation because we're aware that people might be watching afterwards and might be interested to learn more of the reasoning and the way we think rather than just see what we do.
Exactly. So if we want this to be valuable for you, and if you already know these concepts, then we're sharing it for those who don't, right? So by letting you into what we're thinking and why we're working in this way, we're hoping adds value to the community. Yeah. And
Yeah, and please,
go ahead.
if you're watching live, please feel free to
Ask.
ask questions and everything. I could see Johnny said hi in the beginning, and Sergey and Ellen both came in and said hi. So hi back. But please, if you do have questions, feel free to ask them. Don't be shy. Don't think, oh, but I'll be asking a silly question. No, the questions aren't silly. If you have the question, it's a question worth asking.
Yes, please. Because I guarantee if you're thinking it that you want to know, so are a lot of other people. Matter of fact, I might even be thinking it myself. So, a lot of times I'll say, boy, that was a dumb question, or I don't know, but not asking it is the dumb thing to do. So please don't feel silly. Ask us.
Yes, please.
Yes, please.
So this change, which I just made for the fifth parameter, I'm going to put that in a separate commit.
Mm-hmm.
So that the commit where we changed data object is separate from the commit where I changed current object ID.
Okay.
Just to make sure that it's why am I doing this in separate commits? Why did I do the original PR in separate commits? To make it easier to review. If you have to review this with files in alphabetic order or in repo order, it would be really confusing to see what does this relate to, what's the parent class, where how does this all fit together. By doing atomic commits where I change one thing and one thing only in those commits, you can go commit by commit and actually see the complete logic which is involved in that particular step.
Correct.
And it's one PR because I'm addressing one bigger problem, but there's different decision points for each step in the problem.
Yeah, correct. So. Yeah, just let me know when you do get the IDs all done, and then we'll switch over and work on the default values.
Yeah, I'm just writing a commit message now for this new commit because this is going to be a new commit I'm going to inject into this PR.
Sure.
I think Alain is asking a question. Can you?
I saw that. Yep. Here, I'll just put it up on the screen for everybody. He's asking, are you making WordPress maintenance scalable now? I wanted to wait until you had a moment because I knew that you were going to. He's so funny. He's so funny. I can see him laughing right now, too. You better watch out. I'm going to invite you to come join us.
Oh, yeah. Alain definitely should be one of the streams at some point.
Yes, he should.
We can share with Alain, and he can give us his insights in certain things.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
You want to do a code review with us on the walkers? He's going, please no, please no.
Yeah. Not just him going like that.
Oh, I know. Sergey's probably going, not me either. No.
Yeah, same here.
You're welcome, guys. I'm just going to go ahead and see if I can squeeze this comment in here because I think it's a good one from him. So I agree with you that really go look at Juliette's PRs. The way that she does her individual commits, there's thought as she just went through, right? She does things on purpose and you can learn a ton, not only in the work that's done, but how the work is done is really important. So.
Well, thank you very much. Though I have to admit, yes, it takes time, but that's also why I want to do the rebase on screen later at the end of this session, so people can see how I do that, how I create those commits in a way that those PRs will look like that.
Yep.
Believe me, that's not how I create them originally. I fix that up after the fact.
Yes, she does.
But I do that. I create PRs with reviewers in mind. Like I said, why did I create separate commits? Because it helps to make it easier to review compared to just doing, having everything in that big commit all over the place.
You might be wondering if you're listening, well, why do I need to do commits for reviewers? Because the reviewers are the ones, that are going to go through and validate the code and check it. And two, that's how you get your code committed faster. Make it easier for reviewers and core committers, and your code's going to get in quicker.
Yeah, but there's a couple of things. One, yes, to get it committed, because at the end of the day, if people feel like it's a mountain to climb to review it, they will push it off or push to the side. You know what? When I have time and it never gets committed, and that means you've wasted your time creating a PR which is never going to get committed.
Right.
Or committed in 4 years' time, which that's not why you created it. The second is history. The way I'm doing it now with those commits in this PR, having those commits be atomic, they are also descriptive.
Correct.
It means that in the future, when someone looks back, like, why the hell did someone rename this? Or, why is this parameter called like this? And can I rename it to something else? If they do a blame or a history look at the file, they can actually see the description of why this change was made and what the reasoning was behind it.
Yeah, you'll be amazed when you're trying to track something back to figure out, okay, how did we get to this state? That type of thinking and that type of history really helps. I do a lot of that when I go back and I look at blame, I'm looking at PRs and so on to figure out, okay, there's a reason that we got here, and I don't want to just go and change it. I need to know that context of why. That helps me to know how to rescope or rethink this. Having that context, one, obviously it's going to be educational, but two, it's to help our later selves when we're going backwards to look at something.
Yeah, why did I do something this way?
Yeah.
And if there's a reason in the commit, it just makes so much more sense. And yes, I know these commits these Git commits won't be taken one-on-one in SVN the way WordPress works now.
Right.
But in other repos, it does work where that those Git commits will be part of the repo. I do know that the committers on WordPress will often take a lot from the commit messages and put that in the SVN commit message as well.
Correct.
So it's still helpful to basically feed them the information for the commit message.
Correct. Yeah, totally true. And that goes back again, the more you help your core committer, then the work that you've done gets into core, right? So I hear that from a lot of folks. Well, I've done this work and it's just sitting there. Yeah, that's frustrating. Well, this is a tip for you. One of the ways that you can do it to help yourself to get your work and your contribution in. Be kind to your core committer.
And you mentioned the arcs being null at some point.
Yes. Are you ready for that?
Yeah, I'm looking at it now already.
There's 3 instances of it in there, so.
I think it's even worse because I can see the original declaration is it's an array with a default of an empty array.
Correct.
And it's named args. So args is used everywhere. That's fine. And the doc block, like the next one, the page, if I'm going up now, says array, so that one is fine. Here, array again, and empty array, that's fine.
That one's fine.
Then we get to the next one. Where's the declaration? Here. Okay, here we have a null, but it also actually says standard class as arg.
Oh, yeah, see? Yep.
And that, to me, is very much a code smell. I mean, I'm not going to change it because it might well be true in this specific child class, but it is something I would definitely want to dig into and look at some point because this is a very big code smell. It should be an array. That's how the parent has defined it. And you should not change that to something completely different. Again, list principle, this is just plain wrong.
Wrong. I agree. You want to
So,
add that on our...
Yeah, a note of that should be changed. I do understand with the parameter having in the doc block a standard class as type that we can't really change the null to an empty array. It should be changed, but then we also need to investigate standard class.
Correct.
So I think we need to leave this for now. I mean, the default argument being different is not directly problematic. It won't actually cause PHP errors, I think. But it is something we need to look at. But that can only be looked at if we also look at if standard class is actually correct in the doc block.
Correct.
And
we got to
if
go
not,
backwards. Yep.
we need to actually investigate this deeper.
Yep.
And
I'm going to put that into our PHP tasks, into our backlog, so that we don't forget to do that. But I'm also making a note here as well, just in the PR.
Can you actually create a ticket for it on Trac?
Yep,
that might, and share your screen while you're doing that.
Okay, you work on the fixing some of those and the nulls, and I'll do that.
I don't think we can fix them because, as it says, standard class. The other one was also standard class.
Oh, all three? There's three of them.
Yeah, I'm scrolling up now, and the ones I've seen so far are either correct or again standard class with a default null.
Oh, bummer.
Yeah, so yeah, all three have standard class as arguments with a default of null. So this is not something we can fix.
All right, I'm opening a ticket for that one. Hold on.
Yeah, please.
So let's see. I just got to get which ones they were. That one.
And Len is saying the code below immediately uses object access as well. So let me see if I can quickly find args with object access. Yes, it is actually being used as an object in, for instance, nav menu. I mean, this basically needs a redesign.
Yep.
Because this is using args like that, where the parent class defines it as an array. Okay, doesn't have a type declaration, but it should have, because as of PHP 5.0, we could have used array as a type declaration. But adding that now would be a signature change. So,
correct.
And a signature change which will impact plugins even before PHP 8.
That's correct.
So we're not going to add that. But yeah, this the way it's used now, the way it's done now is fragile, confusing, and wrong.
Yes.
Sorry.
She's just very blunt.
Well,
and she's right.
I'm Dutch.
Yeah.
They
don't mess around. I love it.
It's called bullshit.
That's right. Love it. So, but this is one of those things where we see this and we go, wait a minute, we can't solve this problem in this PR because it's outside the scope of this PR, but it is something. Let's go open up a ticket, take a look, and then get it into our backlog. So
yeah, and when I say it's bullshit, I'm not blaming whoever did this.
Nope.
I just see it as something which needs to be fixed. This is not about, skills of specific persons, skills of certain developers. This is about how to make the project better as a whole.
Correct.
And helping people let people learn from what we're doing and how we're doing that while we're doing it. I'm very much not going to do a blame on this.
No.
In the meantime, I will scroll to the next.
Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, you're not sharing your screen where you're creating the ticket, or are you?
I am not, no.
Okay. In that case, I'm just going to go to the next commit.
And you want to know why? Because I haven't figured it out in the software yet. When I tried it, that's when that weird thing
Oh,
For those who just joined us, by the way, we switched software at the last minute because for some reason Restream was having an issue causing this blurry screen whenever Juliette would screen share. So I switched it to something else, and I literally just installed it and just bare bones set it up, and so don't know how to use it yet.
hang on. Hang on. Let's, as we're figuring this out as we
Yeah.
go along,
Okay.
if
I'm gonna
I
do that.
stop sharing at this moment, and you share your screen, see if that makes a difference.
All
Were
right.
we sharing at the same time previously?
Yeah, go
Could
for it.
that be the cause of the
It could
issue?
be.
So I'm going to stop sharing. Please try it now. Yeah.
Let's see. Yeah. See, it goes to this weird. No, I don't want to do that.
Okay.
Something strange is going on now. I'm in this state again to where trying to get out of it. See?
Okay. So shall I share my screen again
Yes,
then?
please go back to yours. If it's going to let us.
Yeah.
Okay, hold
Actually,
on.
let me switch that to Windows. So. Um,
So,
so in.
folks, the next time we do this, I'll have this all pre-set up so that it won't be such a...
Why not? I mean, hey, debugging the software we use for streaming is also debugging.
Yeah.
After all.
Oh, golly jeez. Okay.
Okay. So when
All
you
right.
create a ticket, what's the ticket number?
Well, I haven't created it yet, so...
Oh, okay. You are still creating it.
Because you
But
know how much fun it is to actually try to create things while we're also talking, so.
yeah, oh yes, I know. That's why I did a careful look
All
at whatever I did in those
right.
commits.
Let's see. I got that one. So go ahead. If you want to talk about something else, then I'll focus on getting this done here real quick.
Well, I'm looking at the next commit actually, and again similar. I've switched things to data object, so I'm going to look at the original declaration. Again, it used object, which is soft reserved keyword, and the soft reserved keyword is not problematic again with name parameters. However, it's just not recommended because it will confuse a lot of people because it will look as if you are giving that particular parameter a type declaration within a function call. And that's why you don't want to use those reserved keywords as parameter names because it just confuses people.
Mm-hmm.
So I changed those from object to data object. And the parameter so far, let me say, okay, it's used in one instance. Yeah, I don't think it's actually used anywhere except for the one in the Walker comment. So I think that once you have a quick look, or once you finish this ticket, this should be an easy one to go through. I've I've added not used a couple of times to the doc blocks
Mm-hmm.
when it wasn't used, and that hadn't been documented yet. And somewhere where it said it had a default value and it didn't actually have a default value, I removed that comment.
Okay. Good.
So that's the goal scouting we were talking about earlier,
Yep.
where I actually read what I was changing instead of just looking at the structure and left it slightly cleaner than how I found it.
That just warms my heart. And I don't mean that facetiously. It actually does. I love when people do that. Okay, so we've got that. We got that.
So
Checklist. That's fine.
I might as well also have a quick look, see if any of the other parameters have those weird things with standard class again.
Yes.
Ours is used here again as well.
I was going to say, why don't you check over the parameters and I'll finish this one up. Oh, you got
Have
another?
problem with args with standard class. Well, it's originally declared as an array with an empty array. So it originally declared as an array, empty array default, and at least one place it has a default of null and standard class as the description in the doc block. So this should be added to the ticket.
Yep.
It's for the end-el function within the Walker class, so it's the same scope of the problem.
Is it in the same classes, that
Yes,
child classes?
100%.
Okay.
All
I'll
those
add that.
and Walker. And Walker has start start element and end element. And the first one we looked at was start element, and now
Correct.
the second one we looked at is end element.
All right. So we got end and L. All right. End and start.
Yeah.
So code smells in all of them. Yay! Code smells all around. Why
Now
don't
you understand why I smoke.
Somebody,
Yeah, so
somebody.
I know with streaming I shouldn't be smoking and everything, but sorry.
Wow.
Well, if I look at these kind of things, I kind of need some nicotine to keep my stress level at a lower pace than it.
Oh, besides, we're inviting you into our normal sessions, and we just talk and drink our whatever we're drinking and do what we do. Okay.
Yeah.
For somebody who might not know what a code smell is, maybe you want to explain that.
Well, code smell is it's basically you look at a garbage can and you open it and suddenly this smell hits you and you're like, okay, something is rotting there. Code smell is similar. There's you see something where you know something is rotting underneath the surface, and we need to investigate what caused this, where it came from, and how to fix it. But we know there's something rotting. Does that analogy make sense?
That does.
And some code smells are really bad, up to the point that, just like with the garbage can, you might get this tendency to want to puke. And some are just, small things where a little Girl Scouting or Boy Scouting will just fix it up. There's lots of different things. Unused variables are a code smell. Not descriptively named variables are a code smell. This code smells are basically a subset of technical debt. And technical debt, you have a beautiful matrix to describe technical debt with, things which didn't get done due to time pressure, or things you didn't know should have been done and you didn't, because you didn't know, you didn't do them. But basically the short description of technical debt is everything you should have done and didn't.
Mm-hmm.
And Alain makes a very valid comment here and says an important part of that is that you can actually train your nose to be more sensitive to code smells. And yes, absolutely. And the longer you code, the more sensitive you get to them, because code smells are generally bugs which have not been discovered yet. And the longer you code, the more bugs you've had to fix, and the more sensitive you get to code smells, because there's a bug hidden there, even though it hasn't been reported yet, it hasn't been discovered yet. You can already see it based on a code pattern, and that's the code smell. Alain, do you agree with me describing it like that? And obviously we're going to have to wait about a minute until YouTube has caught up. But Alain's actually already responded yes. So yeah, experience is the sum. Well, yeah, no. What's it again? The sum of our experiences. live. Wow, this beautiful saying, and my brain is not working. Tonya, help me out here.
What?
I'm gonna just Google it, and I'm gonna do that while I'm still screen sharing. um, yeah, it's not actually coming up with what I was looking for, but yeah, basically the experience is all those things we already fixed before and recognize more easily now. And as Alain says, you're the sum of the 5 worst bugs you've diagnosed. Oh my God, don't get me started. Right,
Oh,
okay. How are we doing with that ticket, Tonya?
got it. I'm putting it in into our sheet now too. Let's see. It is
What's the number?
53449. 53449.
I'm pulling it up on screen now. I'm not even sure it needs to change so much as that class probably needs a refactor to allow for different types.
Mm-hmm.
And having the default in Walker be an empty array.
And that probably could be that you're going to have an or case
Yeah.
there, but still, it's something that we need to investigate to figure out
The
what
great
is
thing,
it.
the great thing is PHP 8 now allows union types, so we could have a union type, standard class, or array if the minimum PHP version of WordPress would be PHP 8.
Which
So
is
in about 15 years' time,
maybe,
hopefully,
maybe.
hopefully sooner. Yeah, there is some frustration there.
Uh-huh.
But let's not get into that.
Don't
No,
get her started. I'm just warning you all.
but I mean, why are we working on these things at the moment? It's because of PHP 8. And because we still have to support PHP versions so far back, it actually makes solving some of these things a lot more difficult than if, say, the minimum WordPress, PHP version WordPress supported was PHP 7.2. I mean, a lot of bugs have been fixed in PHP itself, a lot of features have been added, and we cannot use those with a minimum PHP version of 5.6. So it does make it more interesting for us because, still finding a good solution which will work and will work cross version is more challenging. Um, but yeah, it does also make life harder. And it makes it that these things aren't always as easy to fix as people may think they are. You agree, Tonya?
I wasn't listening. No, I'm just kidding. Yes, from the technical side of things, and then there's also the flip side of that as to why we don't raise up as fast is because the percent of sites out there are just there's too many sites out there that are running on older versions, and that's what dictates when the minimum versions. And I'm just sharing the reasoning why the minimum version doesn't raise at the level that one would expect or that you may see in other projects is the percent of users that are on a particular minimum supported version needs to reach a threshold before those changes can occur. So,
Yeah, we're talking, I think last figure I heard was something like 450 million sites on WordPress. So if 1% of that is 4.5 million sites. So we're not talking small numbers,
we're
and I
not.
do very much appreciate that. The other side of it is it's not as if those users can't use WordPress anymore. They just cannot upgrade to the latest version
Correct.
until they update their PHP version. And for some, that's just a kick in the butt they need to actually do it.
Right. But then in some cases, folks may or may not have the ability to move to a different hosting. So the thought behind it is give people the access to the latest features, the latest things that are coming without making them have to also then change their hosting companies if they don't have the ability to up that minimum version, which in some cases is the case. In other cases, it's just clicking the button to do that upgrade or asking your host to do an upgrade. But that's kind of the reasoning behind why it doesn't get done. Just so that folks can kind of have a balance between the two. There's always this balance between what the users and the community needs, and then the technology under the hood as that's running the sites for them.
But the one thing users first is a good philosophy, and it is what made WordPress big. But the wider the range of PHP versions to support, considering the amount of technical debt WordPress has, solving that technical debt just gets harder and harder and more time consuming. So instead of reducing the technical debt, it raises the technical debt each time we have to support an extra PHP version just by the fact we have to support it.
Right.
And that, considering how many hundreds of years of technical debt WordPress currently has, that is a scary thought, and one which will at some point come back to bite it.
Yeah, the one thing to take a look at is to go on, for folks to go on the wordpress.org/about/stats page, and there you can see what the percent of sites out there on what particular version. So let's say that we said we've got to raise it up to a minimum version of 8. I'm just going to pick a number. You can then look to see how many percent of sites that would not be able to upgrade to, say, if we did that in 5.8, WordPress 5.8, they would not be able to upgrade to 5.8 unless they went and said, well, I've got to change my PHP version on my hosting to 8. That's a huge percentage of people. Now, obviously, we wouldn't make that big of a leap from 5.6 to 8, but that's just kind of how you can start to see is if we put users first, what percentage of people would be blocked from being able to upgrade to that next version when that minimum raises. And then you can start to see the complexities of making those decisions. The way it's been explained to me is when we get to below 5%, then we can start to say now we can raise up as long as we're also seeing a trajectory of people are migrating off. Now, that needs to be something that we actively are working on. How do we help the community to let's move you up, keep moving up into the newer versions?
And I pulled the stats page up, and if you actually look where there's now, 06% are on PHP 8, which is not surprising because basically WordPress isn't fully compatible yet.
It's not.
Yeah. That's why we're doing these sessions. But if we then look further, 7.4, 7.3, 7.2, we see that if we take 7.2 as a minimum, over 75% of users are already on 7.2 or above, which is great.
That's awesome.
Even though 7.2 and 7.3 are end of life, it's still, you can see a lot of people have actually made that move already.
Right.
You can see that 7.1 and 7.0 are actually quite small. And it's 5.6, which is still the blocker with 9.1%.
Correct. So obviously, if we said we need to get to
are the first which have already been dropped.
Right. If we say that we want to get to 7.2 and that's 75%, that means 25% of all of those sites out there would be blocked from being able to upgrade to that next version.
Well, that's not true. About 5% are already blocked because of being on less than 5.6.
5.4, 9.1. Sorry, 18.6% then.
18.6%. So
and that's a significant number.
That's a huge number. At the same time, those 7.0 and 7.1 numbers are relatively small compared to 5.6. Yeah. So what we need to figure out, and that's not for us and not for these sessions, is what's happening that people on 5.6 are not upgrading.
Correct.
And that is an interesting question, but not one to fix now.
Let's
continue with this review.
But if you're interested in that conversation, get involved in it and see what collectively as a community, how can we tackle that to be able to help the community of users out there that are using WordPress to start to move towards the newer versions? How can we do that, right? The more that we can move the needle, then we can start to raise that minimum.
Yeah.
So versus raise the minimum and expect everybody to jump. We got to go the other way around. How do we help people to move the needle? And then we can start to raise. Okay, let's get back to...
And just to mention, for those people who want to get involved, have a look at the site help channel in Slack. That is the team which was primarily created to help people upgrade, and they were active, especially around the dropping of everything below 5.6. They were very active, did awesome work, and it's been a bit quiet in that channel and in that team since then. I know there's still things being done, but it sounds to me like they could possibly use some influx of new blood of people to help that team to help people make the next step, and so we can raise the minimum PHP.
Hint.
Yes. Big hint. Okay, let's look at this next one, which I already discussed, but I'm just going to let you have a look over it. This is the again. I'm changing the to data object. Most of the time, it's not used. And again, we came across the arcs, which was not always correct, which you already
I included those.
Yeah. So, relatively speaking, this is a simple one. You're looking like you're seeing something which...
No. I'm just kind of... Okay, not used. Okay, good.
Johnny says we're trying with site help and it's slow going. And Johnny, believe me, we are really, really appreciative of the fact that you're trying. And I really believe you are. We very much send you all our good wishes to make it actually more successful still than it has been so far. Because it has been very successful to get people to move off the older 5 versions. Now we just need them to make the next step.
Yeah, here, I'll put his comment up here. Hi, Johnny. Yeah, so thank you for what you're doing there. So anybody else, remember this channel is about getting you involved in WordPress. How can you contribute and have more impactful contributions? This is one of them right here. If you can help out, come join.
Please do. And now you also know a name of someone to contact if you want to know how you can get started.
Here he is.
So sorry
Johnny.
But having said all that,
this one looks fine.
Yep. Okay, then we'll move to the next comment, which is upgrader skin feedback. Okay, so let me see what the original one is and if it's in the PR or if we need to look it up. No. Okay, yes. Okay, the original one is here. It's the one at the bottom, WP upgrader skin. Yeah, and the parameter name originally was string, which again is a reserved keyword. So that reserved keyword is something we, as the parameter names of the child classes didn't match, we don't want it to change to string because 1, it's not very descriptive. 2, it's a reserved keyword, so it would just be confusing people.
Correct.
And I can see Johnny saying, I'm logging out of Slack now. Well, Johnny, we do appreciate you were logged in with us so far. So in case you're also logging out of the YouTube channel, thank you for being with us today.
Thank you. We'll see you around core.
Yeah. In the meantime, so yeah, when I looked at this, it was like, okay, so string is not a good name.
It's not.
It was inconsistent with the child classes. So what is a good name, which would also work for the child classes? And it is a string. So why not just call it feedback?
Call it what it is.
Exactly is. So that's what I did. And that means that in the original function, in the parent class, I changed it everywhere to feedback
Yep.
from string to feedback.
And that makes
And
sense.
if we look at the child classes, I've done exactly the same. And I've actually renamed the parameter inside those functions as well to feedback, because it's just more descriptive than what it originally was, data or string.
Okay. And that's awesome. So the only thing that I see here is that, again, we have a code smell of string, array, and error, WP error, in multiple places.
Yeah,
So,
absolutely.
mm-hmm.
Yeah, and then again, that's part of one of those things I pointed out with Liskov principle being violated,
Mm-hmm.
but it's outside the scope of this PR.
It is outside the scope. So this one is another one that we'll need a ticket for. It took me forever for some reason to type up the other one, so I'm going to do that after we get done. Just make a
Yeah,
note.
the other one was actually a type mismatch,
Correct.
be originally declared as array and then suddenly changing to standard class. Here it's Liskov principle, where the original is string and now it's being expanded to string array or WP error. Yeah, that's a violation
Yeah,
and should not be allowed.
that is correct. So I need to
Yeah,
stick
and
this
it's only
somewhere.
in the
Hold
one
on.
class. Actually, no, it's in two classes. It's in the Ajax upgrader class and it's in the automatic upgrader class. I have to say, because this ticket's been open 8 months, I'm gonna have to look and double check that no new classes have been introduced which extend the
True.
upgrader score.
Yep.
And I'm gonna have to do that with all of these classes.
Yes, you will.
Actually, it's kind of annoying, and that's what's annoying about PRs like this being open for 8 months.
Well, they get
Um,
stale. I mean, quickly you can get stale, and then you've got to go back and now redo the work again.
I mean, we did see three conflicting files when we originally looked at the PR, and when I rebased them, those were basically non-existent conflicts. That they weren't real conflicts.
Right.
So in that sense, it hasn't gone stale, but the staleness is in, yeah, new code might be added, which is extending these same classes, which might have compounded the problem since then. And,
As
and the trouble with, even if this would have been committed already, even then we have no safeguards in place currently in WordPress core to prevent people from reintroducing the problem.
that is correct.
So this is worrisome. I mean, there is a sniff which I wrote, which is available already publicly, though not in a release yet, in PHP CS Extra, which we could add to the WordPress coding
I
standard.
was going to say that might be something that we want.
So I'm going just for people watching, I'm going to show you that one now. So this is PHP CS Extra. It's an external code standard for PHP Code Sniffer. And in the universal standard, there is a sniff which I added, and I'm not sure I actually added it to the README yet. Did I or didn't I? No, I didn't add it there yet. So I'll just go to the code. That's because it hasn't been released yet in a new version. So there's there's a category called naming conventions, and there's a sniff in there now. No reserved keyword parameter names.
There you
And
go.
it will actually look at all the keywords which are reserved in PHP. And anytime any of these keywords is being used in a parameter name, as a parameter name in a function declaration, it will flag it. It will not fix it because it doesn't know what it should be renamed to, but it will flag it. So I would very, very strongly recommend adding that to WordPress coding standards at some point.
Yep.
But this needs a stable release first. And that once I have more time, it will be done.
Did you hear that? Once I have more time.
Once I'm not making 80 hours a week and still running behind the facts. Yeah.
Boy, does that sound familiar, huh?
Yeah.
Okay. Yes, I think that would be a very valuable thing to have as well. So you betcha.
Yeah, and I think I actually mentioned it in the original ticket already,
Okay.
that I wrote a sniff for that.
Okay.
Let me see.
I haven't read the original ticket in a while.
No, nor me, even though, but I created it, and I'm pretty sure I actually mentioned somewhere that I wrote a sniff for it, and can generate a list for WordPress core with that sniff quite easily.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So anyway, we can check that later if it's
Okay.
there. Regarding upgrader skin feedback, you agree that commit is okay?
Yeah, the only thing that I see there, one we talked about, is that we've got our types, right? The differences there. So I'll open it. For me, I have an action item. I'm going to open another ticket for that.
I think we need an action item where Liskov's principle
Mm-hmm.
is, as a general, just a bulk ticket, one of those blessed tasks. And yeah, there will be tons of commits and tons of tickets related to it, but have a Liskov principle review basically of WordPress core, because it's
Okay.
being violated and this is going to cause problems if it's not already causing problems.
All right. That's a very good point. So we're not going to make it specific to just this. All right. The other thing that
The other one was a type mismatch. This is
yeah,
Liskov.
this one is correct. That is correct.
Yeah.
For the other thing that I see here, and Sergey's probably looking at it too right away, going, "Wait a minute." We've got that feedback in some cases has a description next to it, and other cases it does not, even including in the base or the parent class as well for that parameter.
Yeah. I'm happy to add message
Why
data
don't we
next.
go ahead and just do that here since we've changed
Yeah,
the parameter name? Let's just make it consistent. Yeah.
yeah, might as well. I mean, I can just as easily do that.
Well,
Let
and I
me.
think it fits in here that
But it's also the right Girl Scouting to do.
it is. Other than that, that's the only thing I see here.
Yeah, I'm absolutely happy to make those changes and add those. Let me see where it is,
See,
though.
Juliette's not so scary, is she? You suggest something and she goes, okay.
Don't tell me that. Don't tell people that, because otherwise my reputation is going to go to tatters.
You make me laugh when I'm drinking water.
Hey, isn't that the intention? Isn't that what I'm
You're a stinker.
Okay, let's see. Feedback. Where the hell is feedback? Okay. I'm just going to call it message data everywhere.
I think
And
that fits, yeah.
everywhere. And I'm going to. Yep. Done.
Hmm?
So shall I move this to the next commit and
Yep.
we can start having a look there?
Okay, now we've got same parent of the upgrader skin, and now we're going to look at air. Okay, so can be a string or air. Airs.
Yeah, so we don't have the original class here hasn't changed but clearly was using errors instead of error.
Mm-hmm.
And that's just a naming mismatch.
Mm-hmm. You want to put a description on that one too?
I could, but the actual.
Let me look. Actually, neither of them have it, so that one matches. Yeah,
But the parent class also doesn't have one.
that's what I mean. They match. Neither of them have it, so that's one of those
It
cleanups
should
that.
be given a description, except then I need to dig in and understand better what sort of
Correct.
errors we're talking about. And while I don't mind doing that, that's outside the scope of this ticket.
Yeah, I agree. And Sergey's probably looking at this, going, "This goes into that improve the doc blocks." Well, yes, this one does.
I mean, I'm happy to add it like with the previous one where it was obvious and some of them already had it, some don't.
Yeah, don't worry
To
about it.
actually dig into the code to figure out what the description should be is a different issue.
Yep, and I agree with you on that. And like I said, there is already a ticket open. I can't remember the number of it, where Sergey's been doing a lot of good work of getting these up to, and other contributors too. Sorry. All right,
Yeah.
I've just noted that one for later.
Okay, and yeah, as I say, this is literally just a name mismatch, error versus errors.
Yep.
And in that case, I I've chosen to let errors prevail.
I agree with you there. So next. Okay, so we need the parent class. Nope, the parent class is right there. Okay.
Is that the parent class?
I think it is,
Yeah,
but
yeah, it is. It is. So the original parent class uses value, and I noticed again here the Girl Scouting. I noticed that actually that's not. Oh God, this is yeah, no, this is right. The doc block didn't have the alignment correct, so I fixed that up as I was looking at the function anyway. Girl Scouting again, um, and then I changed everything to value.
I'm thinking for this one, this is another one of those where we've deviated from the pattern we had previously to where we leave the code, long code in place, and then we just assign the parameter name to its context.
Yeah, I need to check though how many classes extend this class, because if there's in this case there was only one class with a mismatched name.
Correct.
It might well be that this parent class is being
Let's find out.
extended with 5 other classes,
Let's find
and
out.
then it's a different discussion, obviously, because then we need to also change those other 5 classes. So
Yeah, see how it just kind of snowballs. Okay, what do we got? Raise up my code.
I'm doing a search of. Okay, I can actually show that in the screen. I'm doing a search now of
I don't see
the
any
WordPress
extends.
of the source of the WordPress code base with the extends keyword and then the parent class name to see what it throws up. And yeah, that will take a while because there's quite a few files.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm not seeing it here when I run it locally. I think we're okay. But we'll wait for yours to finish.
You can see it's how fast it's going at the bottom.
I see.
It supposed to be only the source, so I'm surprised at some of the names I see at the bottom. But still, let's just make sure it finishes and
Mm-hmm.
it will finish in a second. Right. Finish, finish, finish. Right, okay, so here we go. So there's more classes extending this parent. Apparently the others at the time at least weren't doing it wrong. But I could open them all up and have a look what the state of that is at
Oh,
this
yeah,
moment.
you're looking at that one. I was actually looking at the other, but that's fine.
What?
Yeah, I was looking at the child that was there, how value was being changed throughout the child. Sanitize. Yeah, but okay. Anyway, go ahead.
Okay.
Yeah, but we do need to look at all of those.
If I change the name in the parent, yes, I need to change it in all the childs.
Correct. And I didn't anticipate we'd change it in the parent. I was more looking at the one child. But let's make sure, too, of those that there's not this sanitize and value mismatch.
Let me see. I'm still finding the classes now. Opening those up in my editor. Nav menu item setting. Nav menu setting. Okay.
Doesn't have
Function sanitize. Okay. Oh, we're in luck.
None of them.
The others don't actually implement the function sanitize.
That's right. That's what I was just saying, too. Okay, so we're in luck there. All right, let's
Yes,
go
so we can
back.
change value to whatever we want.
All right, hold on just 1 second. I'm going back also and looking at WP settings. What I'm looking at is also that filter that's there. Okay. Saying it's documented, because once we start changing things in a filter, then that may also affect docs and so on. So
Yeah.
it can be a snowball effect.
The thing is, I mean, for the parent, it still makes sense to do value.
I think so too,
So
honestly.
so in that case, I would say let's change the child to value, but then do that reassignment at the top.
I would say yes to that. Yeah. And that's where I
Okay.
was going to go and look, because I bet you that filter that I'm talking about, it's documented in the parent, which then means docs and everything would probably have value in it. And that's what I wanted to look at. So then we're staying consistent.
I hear you. I'm gonna and this is oi.
Bong.
This is not supposed to happen. Has it done it or not? I think it has. Okay, I'm basically cherry picking or cherry pick resetting lines via my Git client at the moment, which is a beautiful thing. So I don't actually have to change all those names back. I've just let my Git client do that.
There you go.
And I'm only gonna assign. I'm gonna do the assignment after those first validations.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, no, I'm not even. Okay. Um, I'm going to let you look with me.
Okay, go for it.
Let me remove what I did and move my editor in view. Um, okay, so here, I've already undone basically the changes within the function.
Okay.
So now we have a mismatch between the parameter coming in and what's done in the function.
Mm-hmm.
But if I look here, basically menu item value is being reset here anyway, because it's merging the default values with what's coming in. So if I change this to value,
Right, and then the guard up there.
that one,
There you go.
that one, and that
That
one,
one. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I find that more readable too.
it makes it more descriptive, and it still keeps the code churn to a minimum, and it
Correct.
still leaves it solves the problem of the parameter name mismatch.
Yes, I agree on that.
So that is
Now, the one thing while you're there, do you notice that in the parent, it's a string or array?
at this moment I'm looking at different things. I was starting
We've
to
got
write a
another
commit.
type mismatch.
Yeah, I'm not surprised whatsoever. Honestly, we're talking WordPress. Haven't you learned anything by now?
I have. That's why it's just gonna. I should just get a T-shirt. Type mismatch to be expected.
Yeah.
Or
Okay,
I'll
so
get a sign. I'll just create a graphic. Type mismatch time. Boom.
yeah, so I've moved that away from from the screen again.
Okay.
So I've fixed that up locally, and we'll look at that again in a minute. But you know how I fixed it up,
Mm-hmm.
basically. So next commit.
Yeah, for this one, I just want to make a note on here because we do have that type mismatch going on in this particular one. So we're going to need to take a
Except in
look.
this case, it's not a problem because it doesn't violate Liskov. The original can have string or array,
Right?
and the child class can have just and only array, which is more specific
That is
and
true.
therefore is actually compliant with Liskov.
Let me see. One more thing I wanted to look at. Hold on. I want to check that. Okay, I want to fix that later. Note. I'm adding another to-do for myself to check the filter docs on that because they've got mixed in the filter description for value. It's just being more specific with string or array.
Oh, yeah.
But that's outside the scope of this.
Absolutely. So I'm just going to click next on
Yes, please.
the button because we're not going to do anything for this sphere on that now.
We are not.
Again, we're in the same customized settings class, and now we're not changing anything in the parent class. So I'm going to have a quick look at the parent class for the declaration of update. And that's declared with the parameter name value, as we see here, with parameter types mixed. You know what? Hang on. Let's just pull that class up because we had the class in the previous commit, so I can just pull up the file and then go back to the next commit, and then here I will just look for function update. Okay, so now we can see the original function declaration with the parameter value, and it's declared as a mixed parameter, the value to update.
Correct.
Very descriptive. The result of saving the value as a boolean. Now, how is that here? Boolean or int. Okay. And again, value. Yeah, to be quite fair, value versus CSS in this case, to me, it's we're using update custom CSS post. If you give that a value, you know that's the value what's going to be saved. So if you give it CSS, to me, I think changing this to value is fine.
I think so too. Yeah.
I'm happy to.
I would leave it. Yeah, I'd leave it just the way it is. That's an easy one. Next.
Okay, next. Validate. Okay, well, look again.
Let's
in
look
the
at the
for validate. Okay, so declared with as parameter name value and declared as mixed value to validate, and return true or WP error. Okay, that should be bool or WP error.
Correct.
With the description saying true if the input was validated. And this should, I mean, why make life difficult by using a mismatch of types in this case? Boolean versus object. But that's another discussion. We know what it is now. So let's have a look at the actual validate function. Again, basically the same arguments as for update the previous commit. So, I mean, I can imagine CSS is slightly more descriptive here, but we're talking a 20-line of a 10-line function.
No, I think it's fine. We do need to change true though to boolean on that, but
yeah, I mean, it can be argued that true is more specific than boolean and false is not an option. So in that sense, it's true. It's correct.
I've heard that being used. I've heard that argument being used. What's your feeling on it?
But well, generally, and this complies with what's happening in PHP 8 with union types. Union types can have int or false. And they can have int or boolean or int or false, but they can't have int or true.
Correct.
So true is not in a pseudo type allowed in PHP 8.
Correct.
While false is a pseudo type allowed in PHP 8. And it's for a similar situation. Basically, false in this case, in most cases, when you expect another type is an error condition.
Mm-hmm.
True is not an error condition. In this case, the error condition is WP error.
Correct.
So, but again, that is something which is outside scope of this PR.
It is.
Something which my eye triggers and your eye definitely triggers straight on, but it's not something for this PR.
Correct. It's more one of those of, maybe we should be looking at where we're using true false as a type, right? And investigate those and then have a discussion about how we want to handle those for that specific reason you're just talking about, and future proof as well.
And maybe look at reducing the number of accepted types for parameters and for return values. And, so to prepare WordPress for a point in time where we can actually start using type declarations.
Right. Exactly. So, and that's why my eye caught on this was, wait, this is not a normal pattern that I'm seeing. False I've seen, but not true.
Accepting less wide-ranging types in a parameter, having less wide-ranging types as a return value also makes it much easier to test code.
Yes.
And would therefore encourage people, or hopefully encourage people, to contribute more tests.
Absolutely.
And it's easier for new people to start working on tests. Well, the barrier of entry for contributing with tests is now a lot higher than it should be.
It's too high.
And that's partially due to these kind of things.
Yes. Well, that and some others from what I'm hearing for contributors. But this definitely is one of them, right? When we have so many different types, mostly when you use the word mixed, that is very open-ended, and writing a test for every possible combination.
Mixed should be a band. There's actually snips for that.
See, I figured there were.
But that's, again, another discussion.
That's another discussion. Next! Oh, let's see. What's the next one?
Okay, so this is WP REST controller.
Okay, let's get to the...
Let's see if the parent is in there. Okay, by the looks of it, the parent is not actually in this.
No, it's not.
So I'm going to search for, I'm going to open the parent. REST API. And we need REST controller. And where would that be? Is that in endpoints? Okay, yes, I guessed right. WordPress REST controller, and then we need prepare. Hey, Juliette learned to type. Prepare item for response. Okay, so this is the function we're looking at.
Yep.
Prepare the item for a REST response. The original parameters are called item and request.
Mm-hmm.
Type mixed and type WP REST request.
Okay. Just local.
So if I then switch back to the PR, you will see that every single extension has changed the parameter name to whatever the domain context is that child class is addressing.
Mm-hmm.
And as the name of the function is prepare item for response, I figured leaving it as item in most cases made a lot of sense.
It does make a lot of sense, actually.
But again, like the original says mixed.
Yep.
That in this case is fine, but yeah, so the child classes often have different input types. One here is an array, another one a block type, WP post. Mm-hmm. So it really is a mixed bag. off.
I would change the second one that we have here. The second one, I would go ahead and assign item to post. One, because there's a filter down there where it might have already been documented as post. And
the documentation is in this particular function.
pardon?
And filter documentation normally doesn't get doubled.
Yeah.
If a filter is documented somewhere, it will be the second time that filter is used, it will point to the original
Yeah, I'm
documentation.
actually thinking of, hold on one sec.
And again, no named parameter, so the parameter name will not get passed. We can even leave the
Here,
parameter name.
it's documented in developer.wordpress.org references as the hooks, and it has it as post. That's more what I'm meaning when I say documentation. I'm talking about.
And the fact that WordPress uses doc blocks with filters, actually, we don't need to rename it in the doc block. And this sounds counterintuitive, but the doc block has no functional relation of, well, it has a functional relation as in for documentation purposes, but there's no relation in anything else that those parameter names need to be the same. You can just call it whatever you want because it's just meant as documentation.
Yes. Yeah, I was more meaning, and I get that. So if we go to the developer documentation that's on .org, it has that specific filter with those args named post with the description about it. So if someone were to go and look at the code and then look at the documentation that's on .org, they'd be like, wait a minute, it's post here and it's item there, and have a confusion point.
It makes no difference. It functionally, it really doesn't make any difference.
It does not, but it's just keeping docs in check. Otherwise, we need also go and change the docs. That's what I'm saying here.
That's not necessarily true because there's quite often there will be a reference. Say you have a post object and then you do an ID. Then in the doc block of the filter, it will say $ID, as if a variable called ID. While in the actual apply filter, it will say post object, what's called arrow ID. So they already, in a lot of places, aren't directly linked anyway.
Sure. But should we be making them worse when we're actually updating code like this? I mean, here we're clearly saying that it is documented that way, and now we're changing it to be item instead of post.
Well, whether that's making it worse is still... I mean, as I say, I can just change the doc block bit for the filter back and still leave the code the way it is.
Or assign, like we've done in the others, just assign item to post and then leave post in there.
Prefer?
I would prefer to leave post in there and just keep the documentation to match because it's actually showing the code and so on. So that way it just matches. It's one less friction point for a contributor to go, wait, that doesn't match this.
Yeah.
And then hopefully in time, the code and the documentation match each other. That's kind of my hope.
Yeah, okay. It is actually quite a short function.
Yeah, it is.
So
but post in this case, post really is the thing, right? So it is more descriptive that it is post.
So post is item at the very top. And then whenever I changed it to item, I'm going to change it back to post. Where am I doing this? Yeah, I should have just done a revert and I didn't, so now I'm doing it manually.
Yeah. You're just making it harder on yourself.
Yeah. No, but I mean, I had the commit right in front of me, so if I've done it in all the same places, then it should be fine.
Okay.
Okay. Prepare item for response. Okay, I've updated this one.
And the rest look good.
The rest looked fine. Let's show to whoever is watching. So yeah, I was already assigning them in a number of places at the top of the function, and that's probably due to descriptiveness.
Yeah, the only one I debated was ID versus item. ID is something that's very common to understand, but it's such a short little function or method here that I don't think that one matters. And it's only changed in 2 places, so I think we're fine there. Just thinking out loud in case someone sees that.
Yeah, but we also mentioned before that ID is so incredibly generic and can mean nearly everything.
Anything.
Yeah, ID of what?
Yeah.
ID of the item to prepare, but the original parent class actually asks for the item.
Yes.
So, yeah, I understand where you're coming from. Yeah.
Yeah, that's why I always like being much more specific with, if you're going to use ID, what is the thing, dash or underscore ID? What is it? Post ID, comment ID. Tell us what it is. Give us some more context.
Something to do with search.
Yeah. Okay.
But
all right. What's the next one?
Yeah. Okay, let's go for the next one. That's revisions controller get parent.
Okay, let's go and see. I went too far. Go back one.
I go back one, you go back one.
No, me. Sorry. Me.
Yeah, okay. No. Yeah, so revision controller get parent, and that one extends which class? The rest controller, just like before.
Just like before, so we have that one.
Search that one because we already have it open.
Get parent.
Hey. Why? Okay, so it does extend the rest controller, but apparently, hang on. Oh, okay. So yes, it extends the rest controller. It doesn't actually overload this method. This is, by the looks of it, an original method, but it uses parent as a parameter name.
Correct. When really it's the parent ID. Yeah.
Yeah, and parent is a reserved keyword.
Is a reserved keyword.
Which
Correct.
Can get really confusing if you start to use parent, colon, and then an object.
100%. So this one, yes, absolutely. So this isn't a case of where we're overloading the method itself. Instead here, we're switching it from a reserved keyword to one. This is also much more descriptive of what it is. Okay.
Also, I wouldn't be surprised if maybe the parent class removes the get parent method.
Could be.
Because I'm not sure why I would have looked at it otherwise.
Yeah. Caught your eye there.
No, I've literally gone through a list of things, so I've not got. I mean, going through all of WordPress classes. At random is. There's so much to be fixed there that. Yeah, yes. No. No, so this was a very targeted going based on a list.
Well, I could see that, definitely. All right, so that one right there.
Okay, so, and I mentioned, so the method in the parent class may be removed. That people might think now, hang on, but isn't that a BC break? No, it's not, because if a child has implemented it and the parent doesn't implement it, and that doesn't break anything.
Correct.
It's only if even when removing it from a child method doesn't necessarily break it, because as long as it's still in the parent.
Correct.
It's only when it doesn't exist at all anymore.
When both are removed, that's the problem, right?
And in this case, it's you do have to make sure that calls made from the parent to that class to that method are now conditionally done.
Mm-hmm.
Only if that method exists.
String and
Still, you
ints.
want to be careful with those kind of things, but it isn't a hard BC break.
Yeah,
So
totally agree.
next one is the get sitemap provider. Again, the parent is not in this PR, so I need to look for the parent.
Yep.
Um,
You're going to
that
find
is,
it in WP includes sitemaps.
yeah, oh,
Folder.
it's already there, sweetie.
Oh, okay.
Uh,
I'm looking over at another monitor. Didn't see
yeah,
it.
yeah, don't worry, you're good. It,
Yeah, this one
except
looks good to me.
now WordPress is doing something funky. Sorry, GitHub was doing something funky. It was I was using keyboard shortcuts to do a search,
Yeah.
except keyboard shortcuts didn't get passed to my browser, but actually went to GitHub, which was starting to do something.
Ah.
So yeah, the
Yep, this
original
one's good.
one was called pagenum and object subtype, with pagenum being an int and object subtype a string. Um,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, and
Yeah. And then you did the same thing here. You updated there. Let me just double check. I forgot to do that. Hold on one sec. The default value is an empty string. Both of those are correct. The types are correct. Okay, this one's good.
okay.
Next.
And you understand why I changed, because it used post type
Yes.
or taxonomy, and yeah, it's again too more
Okay.
specific than parent.
All right.
Right. Next one is in the
Same
same
parent.
realm with get max number of pages. Okay, that's actually the next function. Again, uses object subtype
Mm-hmm.
in the parent.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yep,
I've
this
just
one's good.
yeah.
Yep. Okay. Next. I like when they're easy like that. If only they all were. Okay,
This is
let's.
the last commit. We're already at the last one. So
Hot diggity. Yeah, let me look at this one here real
let's
quick.
look at widgets first. The actual widget class, so we know what the original is. Where is it? Where is widgets?
Widgets.
Here, WP widgets.
I just landed there myself. Okay.
Function update.
Update.
Okay, so new instance, old instance, actually very descriptive names. And some of the
Mm-hmm.
child classes used instance instead of old instance. I think old instance is actually more descriptive than instance, so
I
I just
agree.
changed.
And I'm just checking to make sure they're arrays. Yep, they're both arrays. Good. They're both arrays. Yep, that is
Yeah,
correct.
and I did do the assignment at the top
Mm-hmm.
because those functions were quite long functions,
Mm-hmm.
and it would just cause a lot of code churn to
Totally true.
update everywhere in the function.
Well, hot diggity. We finally got to the end of the commits. So
So
now it's to you. Go for it.
now, what I've done, you can see the branch, you can see the original commit, and you can see those fun little commits where I change things. Add to column default, add to start L, and the three variants of that. And this was the extra commit where we changed that second parameter.
Mm-hmm.
So you can see that those are the commits I added in between.
Yeah.
And you can I use the add to annotation to basically tell me when I do the interactive rebase where this commit should go. Because it okay, we've reviewed it together now. So for you, it would be informative to look at the changes I made, but we can do
Yep.
that now.
Mm-hmm.
So you can confirm that I've done what we discussed. In this case, it was
Yes. Mm-hmm.
the assignment at the top. Here again, assignment at the top, and undo all those parameter changes in
Correct.
the virtual function. Here's another one of those. Here's something I need to fix
Whoopsie.
because I've added a trailing white space. That is class nav menu edit. Where is that? Here. Okay.
Notice how, for those watching, notice how she introduced a new empty line. We don't want to introduce a new empty line there, so she's going to remove that. So watch and clean up
No,
after yourself.
I did want to introduce the new empty line. I just didn't want to introduce the white space
See it. Yep.
at the start of the line,
Yep,
which
I see
shouldn't
it.
be.
So scratch
So
what I said.
you're going to laugh at what I'm doing now because you can see the new commit atu. So as we were reviewing, I'm now going to do a quick interactive rebase. Rebase current branch on, selected commit. Oh, damn it, sorry, I need interactive rebase. Interactive. Okay, I need to move everything to the right screen. So I'm going to quickly move that commit, use fix up, and now it's just going to automatically do it. So we can continue with where we were, and you can now see that those extra tabs have been removed. So I undid again here the changes within the function for data object and only did the assignment at the top.
Correct.
When we watch those in a minute, we should be able to check really easily that that was done correctly, because then we will see that all those changes in the original commit have been replaced with just the one assignment.
That is correct.
And I'm realizing it's gone really dark here.
I see that. Very dark.
Yeah, and that's not normal. Normally, it's going to be light here until 11ish now.
Yeah.
And it's only nearing 7, but there's a rainstorm coming.
I was
and
going to say, yeah.
They predicted heavy thunderstorms for tonight. So clearly the weather front is moving into my area at the moment.
Very quickly at the moment.
Why
Yep.
you can see the darkness suddenly.
Well,
So
you get a lightning show light up behind you. Little fireworks.
Yeah, we know.
Yeah.
Okay, so next one, a similar thing again. I've undone all the changes within the function itself.
Yes.
And instead of that, I'm doing an assignment at the top. This is that extra one where we changed everything current object. So I'm just going to show you one by one.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
And there's nothing else below that. Again, same thing here.
Yep, looks good. Yep. Yep. And yep. Yep.
And one more. But here, there's actually... So yeah, this is the one with the most changes.
Okay. And then that one. Yep. Okay. Yep.
Yeah, and then the last one is simple.
Yep.
Again, yeah. Okay, then that was the updates to the doc blocks. Again!
Darn it all!
Yes. And this is in customizer nav menu. I do normally trim trailing white space, but clearly I've missed a few. Let's make sure I commit that. And make sure that when I commit it, I don't change the line endings to Windows. So, and I'm just going to say sanitize now. just to make it quick. So I've removed this one, but other than that, this is the one we actually discussed before, where I
Yes.
changed value at the top, but then with the reassignment here, I let it reassign to menu item value to
Yes.
use the old name everywhere else.
Yep.
And
Yep.
then we
Like it.
have the last one.
Yes, with post. All right. So just do your assignment and then restore. Yep. Okay.
Yeah, so you've
Good.
seen all the changes.
They look
Now,
good. Thumbs
we
up.
have all those add. First, I'm going to squash this sanitize into that sanitize at the top here, so at least I know those are correctly done. So, oops, let's make sure I show that.
Thank you.
So yeah, that's already done now. So here we can see that that indent is gone.
Correct.
And now we're going to do the big rebase.
Let's go.
Okay, let's first make sure I fetch. And the reason I do that is as I'm rebasing on top of master anyway, I might as well make sure that I'm at the actual top of master, which is gone a few commits ahead since we started. So I'm gonna rebase it on the actual master, interactive rebase. And I'm gonna show you what I'm gonna do. So that first one, which was the extra commit, goes to column default, and I'm gonna fix up that commit. Then start EL. Again, I'm gonna add those in the middle. I'm gonna fix up that commit. And this is why I committed so often, because I can now do this interactive rebase without getting conflicts while I'm doing it.
That's right.
This start EL, the second parameter match, I'm just going to reorder that and put that in the middle of the commit range next to the first parameter mismatch, which was in the range already. Then update the skin feedback. Again, fix up, customize or sanitize. Again, fix up. REST API, prepare for response. Again, fix up. Why am I using the F for fix up and not squash? Well, I don't want these commit messages. These commit messages, which I've used for these temporary commits, are absolutely useless. Are literally just notifications for myself to know where to put the new commit. And are you hearing the rain?
I am.
Shall I close the window? That should keep the noise down. Right. So yeah, and why am I not creating tidy, nice commits for this? Well, the reason is it doesn't actually add value aside from for the reviewer, but we've done a live review together.
Correct.
So and we've already reviewed those changes I've made based on the review.
Correct.
So
it's reviewed.
It doesn't have any extra value to keep those extra commits.
Correct.
And having atomic commits where all the changes for one particular thing is in one commit has more value for the history of the code base.
That is correct.
So now I've closed this, you can see the rebase having been done. And if I now look at the timeline again, and I'm going to show you, from master, you can see it's now all the nice tidy commits. Basically, the original commits plus this one extra one in the right order. And I'm going to force push this to my fork of the GitHub branch. And then the update of the GitHub commit. The GitHub PR should be automatically updated now. So if we go to files changed, those changes I made should now be here.
Correct. refresh. And there we go.
And then I'd say, Tonya, now it's up to you.
It's up to me to hit the approve.
Well, not
I'm
just
going to look. Hold it.
but to actually, we're going to have to go to the original ticket. Some people left some comments because they were getting confused about the new names I used
Yeah.
and why I was using different names. And I'm like, it's if they don't understand the original problem, it's difficult to explain this. But basically, it's now up to you to read through these comments and then leave a reply to these comments saying you've reviewed it
Yep.
and that we've made some adjustments and that you fully approve
Yep.
of this as it
We'll
is.
do that. I'm going to add that to my to-do list.
Yeah.
Comment on 51553. I will do that this afternoon and get that done. So then this one should be good to go. I'll also mark it for commit.
Well, and that doesn't address this whole ticket. It just
No.
addresses a small part of this ticket. Task 1, where I review those signatures of methods in child classes. And what we didn't do this time, and what we maybe should still do before it gets committed, is check whether new child classes were introduced, which extend onto those classes where we made changes.
Yep.
So that's still an open task before this should be committed. Then again, this can be already committed, and we probably should do a complete new scan with that external tool of the whole code base.
Correct.
To see if any new violations have been introduced in the past 8 months.
Yeah. Here's what I'm thinking is that let's just go ahead and get this one committed as is.
Yep.
And then you're right. We need to now do another scan because it's been 8 months here and see if there's any others. And then that will wrap up task 1 for us.
Yeah. At least for the time being, there's not going to be an automated check at this point in the WordPress CI.
Correct.
So new issues can still be introduced, unfortunately.
It can be. It's another one of those continuous ongoing audit type of things that we have to do periodically.
Yeah, and it's not something we can fix with CodeSniffer. You really need a different type of tool to check for that. Something like either PHP Stan or Psalm or the tool I used, Execat. Those tools are more suitable for this kind of scan than PHP CS. But introducing those to WordPress is so not type oriented, and those tools are extremely type oriented, that would generate a sea of issues, which will make it really hard to introduce any of those tools to the WordPress code base at the moment.
Yeah.
So it's more useful to use them selectively for scans like this,
right,
than to currently introduce them in CI.
Yeah.
The review other function signatures still needs to be done.
Yes.
Review for reserved keywords. I can generate a list based on the current master of current trunk of WordPress, and add that in a gist, for instance.
Yes. Good.
So people can start working on it. And I think I already did that.
Okay.
Look.
Ta-da!
I mentioned that sniff I mentioned earlier.
Okay, there it is.
The ticket. I showed the report I used from Execat, and I showed created a gist with all the reserved keywords, which are still used as parameter names. And that's quite a list. It's not too bad.
No.
280 in October. So I wonder how many more have been introduced since.
Well, there's where we can go back now and refresh and get a whole list as we work on that item.
I can quickly scan it if you want.
Yeah, and then you can just add that gist, update the gist.
And I can show you how to do that scan. Then again, I mean, my setup is probably
different than mine. course, mine's
Yeah,
evolving, new computer, so.
yeah. And another thing, what we didn't do also is we didn't run the unit test. But as I've pushed up to GitHub now, the unit test will
It
be
will
run. If
automatically.
it fails, we'll see that in a moment. I'll get a notification. So for now, I'm gonna say PHP I'm just gonna focus on the source directory
Mm-hmm.
because I really don't care about the test directory as much. I think I did just the source directory in previous time as well. No, I actually did the tests as well. Okay. Did I mention the command I used? No, I didn't. But okay, so uh, PSP means show progress. S show the source codes. I'm going to run it over everything using the standard universal, using the sniff universal naming conventions, no reserved keywords, parameter names, and I'm going to, not exclude, but ignore the vendor directory and the build directory so we don't get duplicate results. And I want the report to tell me to show me a full report, a summary report, and a source report. And now we're going to run the scan.
Woohoo.
And I'm as you can see, I'm on PHP 8.07 already, so I'm running this on PHP 8. And I'm running on an unreleased version of PHP Code Sniffer. The latest release of PHP Code Sniffer is 3.6.0. But as I contribute to the development of Code Sniffer, I always scan everything I scan locally with the development version.
Yep.
It helps us catch bugs before they get released.
Correct. Yeah, that makes sense. All right, so we've got failing tests back after the push, so I'm going through and
We'll
seeing.
let it run in the meantime. Oh, bloody hell. I must have not excluded something. Oh, so yes, let's just scan PHP files. Does that make sense? Let's
Yes.
see if
Mm-hmm.
that makes for a shorter list. Extensions is PHP. Okay, I'll wait for the scan to start and to tell me how many files it's found and if that's a reasonable number before I switch to looking at GitHub Actions.
Not a problem.
I have various things in that branch, so that there must be something else interfering. The 62,000 files is not what I want to see. I have got the memory limit set up high, but I don't think it would run that much. Well, 4,000 sounds about reasonable. Okay, so going to the PR. I can actually look at the checks, and it says there is an undefined variable. So somewhere
Yep.
in one of the ranges of,
There's an undefined, right? So that's what I'm looking for here.
and that's the only one. Yeah,
Yep, that's the only one. It's a post variable.
yeah, that was probably one of the ones I did manually. Then that should actually be quite
It should
easy.
stand out.
Yeah, but if we go through the commits again,
Yeah, which is what I'm doing.
it's gonna come out when we go through the commits again, because then there's one which I changed somewhere where I'm just going to go very quickly scanning this, not talking people through it. I should be able to spot it, hopefully.
Oh, I see it.
Yeah, you got
Yep.
it?
Yeah, so let's see. Which commit is it in? Hold on one sec.
Which file is it in? I'll probably know the commit
Yeah,
from.
hold on. Now I just lost it. Here it is. It's in class-wp-post-list-table. And it's going to be in column_CB is the one that we're dealing with.
Okay, so post list table here.
Let's see, column item. Yep, that's the one. Post is used down below, so in the rest of the code.
Okay.
So this, and it's used through a filter, so this is one we probably want to do an assignment up at the top. We just missed one.
Interesting. Let's find it. Column CB. And I can actually, I'll share this. This is within my Git client, by the way. So I've not actually switched to my editor now. This is my Git client where I can do this.
That's right.
We edit files from my Git client. Mm-hmm. So you said let's assign to post at the top?
Correct.
So post is item.
And then change it.
And then I change this one back to post.
Right. And now we can see in that apply filters there where post is passed to it. Now it retains that variable.
And actually, oh God, I know why this was missed. This filter wasn't introduced until WordPress 5.7.
That's right.
I created this PR when
way before that
wasn't even released yet.
That's it.
So
right.
This filter didn't exist when I created the PR.
Correct.
I'm not surprised.
No. Well, that's good. That's why the tests showed us that, whoops, got a problem.
Yeah, but what I'm afraid of, and I'm not joking when I say this, is that there's more of these issues which the tests haven't
been flagged.
Because there's too little tests. Mm-hmm. And the tests do not
100%.
catch
100%. Well, then that tells me I need to do a deeper review of it. So I'm going to make a note to go back through and go through the code and do a deeper review.
The trouble with this is it gone still.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, and this basically it means it needs to be redone from scratch completely if we want to make sure it's correct. And that's just annoying and a waste of time in a lot of ways and not constructive. And the comments which were given to the original PR were, largely comments to do with, I don't agree with the name you chosen for the parameter name. Well, give me a better name then.
Right.
But nobody did.
Yeah.
And then nobody actually took action to do something more with it, which led to it being still now 8 months later.
Yep.
And it's frustrating because spending the time on something like this and then
it just sits there. And then we have this.
Basically having to be redone from scratch is annoying.
Yes.
Okay, we've gone from 280 to 594. Mm-hmm. So it's gone up, the problem.
Mm-hmm. Which I would expect that, honestly.
But this is, I didn't do a clean scan. Sorry, I'm going to have to redo the scan. And I'm going to have to edit. I'm going to do it slightly differently. What I'll do now is WordPress actually has some exclude rules in the PHP code sniffer rule set file. And I wasn't respecting those because I was running with the command literally from the command line, not using the rule set. But I should probably use the rule set to take advantage of those excludes in the rule set itself. So instead of using standard here, I'm going to remove the standard. I'm still going to keep the sniff name, but I've made sure I've added that locally to the rule set, so it won't error out on it. I can remove the the ignores. I'm gonna keep the report, and I think I'm gonna keep extensions. It's not gonna do any harm. So let's do it again now. Oi, oh. Yeah, this is one of the problems with when you run on development versions of things.
Yep.
Sometimes things get removed or renamed. And the rule set WordPress uses for PHP CS is perfectly valid for the last release, but will need an adjustment for the next version. And I'm already running on the next version. So I've now updated that.
Good.
Well, it does make for a saner number of files, 1625. So this should give us the same base result set as the previous scan from October last year. Oh, sorry. Watching a dot go across the screen.
You know, it actually is quite relaxing for me to watch dots go across the screen. It's when errors come up that I get a little annoyed.
Let's have a look in the meantime, because I mean, I did push that commit up, didn't I? Yeah,
Yep.
I did
Yes,
push
you
it
did.
up. So let's see if actions has run again. Well, come on. Yeah. Or is still running. It is still running, but the end-to-end tests have already passed, and they were failing before as well.
That is correct. Yes.
So chances are the unit tests which are still running will pass as well.
Correct.
So we'll see in a minute, but at least this gives us hope.
Yeah.
And we're nearing the end of the scan now. Look, we're very close to the end. Yeah. Okay, so not from 280 to 500 something, but still from 280 to 290.
Yep.
And I'm running on the code base after those things which have already been fixed by the PR which is open. Because we already removed a number of things in the PR which is open.
Just a few things.
Yeah. Well, where reserved keywords were being used.
Yep.
So I'm copying this now. And I'll update the gist. Let me see. Okay, here is the gist. Edit. Yep. Why is it not doing what I'm saying it to do? Okay. Command used. Will not work by default. I'm just doing it for myself and updated on June 18, 2021.
There you go.
So this is updated. This list can be used by people to now action it.
There you
and
go.
that's why I shared it in the ticket before. Because there were people saying, "Oh, what can I do to help?" And I'm like, "Here's a list," and
there's the list. Yeah, well.
So now it's down to us to take action,
and we will. So
okay, we've already taken a great first step because this 8-month-old patch Well, it does still need a second review because we do need to check for classes which have been extended
Hmm.
or other.
Or other
We
changes.
need to review this more carefully,
Hmm.
um, at least for those things where we don't do a variable reassignment at the top of the functions.
Correct.
Um, but after a second review, which we'll maybe do next time,
Hmm.
this can get committed, and at least it's one step in the right direction.
Correct. That is correct. So, yeah. So I've got action items on here. Um,
Yeah.
so
You will leave a comment on this ticket.
Well, I'm going to wait until we finish up with this, and I'm actually going to go through, I think, in the PR and talk about some of the naming and add my reasoning right there in the PR too, so people can see
Yeah.
why I agree with this, why I agree with that, blah 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 blah, and then leave a ticket or a comment in the ticket. Okay, so we've got a deeper review of what's different from then to today, and just to make sure that there's not something that's going to bite us. Leaving comments of the reasoning of the names that were chosen, which I agree with. Obviously, we just went through those. I've got to open a new ticket that's more general. I've got a couple other small little tasks that I've gotten written down too from what we
Yeah,
did.
and we respond on this ticket, including responding to whatever comments people left before.
Mm-hmm.
I'm currently just going to leave a ticket, a comment saying, for your info, the gist mentions in comments with actionable parameter renames still to be done
Yep.
as a minimum has been updated. Just making sure that everyone who's watching the ticket has commented before gets a little tickle in their side saying, by the way, if you offered to help before, you still can. Please help
Yes,
us.
yes, please help us. I'll also, when we get done here, I'll leave a comment on the ticket too, just to let folks know that we've done a thorough first review of the PR and updated things. The task yet to be done, and then I'll list that out. So folks know that the PR is not quite ready yet because we have to do a thorough review to catch it up to today to make sure.
Yeah,
Uh,
and there's two items there which we need to look for in that second review. One, making sure that no new classes have been introduced which extend the parent classes,
right.
which we were looking at.
Yep.
Two, making sure that in the code of the functions where we actually have a rename and not a variable reassignment at the top,
Mm-hmm.
that no extra code has been introduced into those functions, which might need adjusting still.
Right. No into right. Got it. So then that way everybody is on the same page as to what the state of the PR is, and then they know that we're actioning on it. So then the next time we get together, we can just finish this puppy up
Yes, I'm
and get it
gonna
done.
reload it asked me to reload the PHP task file,
Hmm.
and I'm gonna look for that ticket.
Yeah,
Where
let's
is it?
update our status on that one.
Yeah. Okay, this is the parameter name review. I'm gonna give it today's date.
Mhm.
Yeah, that's 100 years from now. Let's we'll probably still be fixing
Whoopsie! Yeah.
deviating by that time, but the next steps, next action needs a second
Review.
review for code changed in the last 8 months, uh, and should then be committable.
Yes.
That's
So
the current status.
right. So let's make the next time we get together that we finalize this. If we haven't already, we get it finalized and ready for this PR at least to be committed, and then task 1 would be then to finish task 1, which we can do next time too, is to go through and scan again to see what code has been introduced that we need to take a look at as well, which I would guess, I'm just going to say, with all the new stuff, especially in 5.8 that's been merged in, there probably is more, but we want to take a look.
Well, those execute scans aren't as easy to run locally as you'd think. So I'm just going to ping the maintainer of execute and what is it called? Flash my eyelashes at him and very kindly ask him if he would be so kind to update the online version, because there's actually an online version.
Say,
And I
please, sir, would you please update this for us? Blink, blink, blink. Flutter, flutter.
Yeah, that kind of thing. So there is actually an online report, and I don't know when the last time it was, when it was last updated.
Yeah.
And yeah, it takes a little while for this to load. Okay, so parameter mismatch. That's the specific one I looked at. It now says there's this is everything. This is not the filtered bit. So in total in the repo, there's according to Execute 150,000 issues. Yeah, I'm gonna have a look at the dashboard.
You know that year you put on there, that might actually be the case. 100 years from now.
The last audit date is the date I actually created this PR.
Ah, okay. Yeah.
So I'm gonna ask Damien, my good friend Damien, if he will be so kind to update the
Please,
online
Damien. Please update.
And then we'll have an up-to-date
Yes.
list to work from next time.
That will be very helpful.
Specific things.
Yeah, extremely helpful.
Yeah.
Okay, so I think we could probably end. Huh?
By the way, this is public information. Yeah. And you can also see the term code smells here again as well. And this is one of the 150,000 code smells.
Yeah. So Juliette and I are employed forever doing this. Want to join us? Actually, yes. If you want to join us, please.
Please, yeah.
Please get involved.
It'd be very helpful for more people to get involved.
Yes,
and
please.
There will be sessions. I mean, this time we were reviewing a PR which was already prepared. There will also be sessions where we're actually each working on part of a ticket and working together in a branch, adding commits one after another, because we're actioning something for the whole code base. But doing that alone is a lot of work and very lonely work sometimes. So it can be helpful to do that together.
Yep.
And it's also helpful that, when you run into something where you need to spar with someone, how do I solve this, that someone is available. So some of the other sessions will be live streaming, will be more focused like that. And others, and in that respect, next time, if some really urgent PHP 8 issue get reported in the meantime, we'll might
jump
need
on
to
that
first.
Yeah. That will take priority over something like this. But yeah, we'll plan on doing this unless something much more urgent pops in the meantime. Then we'll adjust our plan so that you know what to expect to come join us next time. So.
Yeah, and I'm hoping to create a scan for something which I'm very much hoping will not actually give any problems in WordPress, but is a PHP 8.1 change, which is where the impact, if it does exist, is actually really nasty. So I'm hoping to create a sniff for that somewhere in the next week or so.
Oh, thank
goodness.
goodness.
So I will run that sniff over WordPress. And if that throws up anything, that's one of those things we will address first, because it will be nasty.
It will be.
And unfortunately, there's also a couple of changes in PHP 8.1 which we will not be able to detect.
Mm-hmm. We're just going to have to go through and find as best we can.
Well, we'll not be able to detect via a PHP compatibility sniff. We may be able to detect them via the unit test, or most likely, but then the unit test suite is far from complete.
Correct.
We may again be able to use Psalm or PHP Stem to find some of these issues.
Yes.
But some of the changes in 8.1 are going to be interesting to find.
Yeah, over the next 6 months or so, there's going to be a lot of interesting type of work to do. But we had a lot of that work too last year with 8.0. That was interesting work. Now, some of these things in 8.1, though, are going to be, as she said, much harder to be able to find. It's just going to be roll up the sleeves, let's go, because there's not tests for a lot of core for us to find it there either.
We've discussed this before, but for anyone listening, and then we are going to close off because it's a long session already.
It is a long session.
But yeah, one of the things which I expect will cause, there's two changes in PHP 8.1, which I expect to cause problems, one of which more so than the other. The smaller one is that internal PHP functions will now have a return type. Now, from the most part, that's not a problem.
Right.
Because you barely ever overload an internal PHP function unless that function doesn't exist in PHP itself, and otherwise you get, function already declared errors. So that's not an issue. However, some methods in interfaces in PHP also have gotten type declarations, return type declarations. And one I already noticed in another repo was the JSON serializable interface. The JSON serializable function in that interface has gotten a mixed return type. So if you have a class which implements JSON serializable, we now have a problem. Because for that to work on PHP 8.1, we need to add return type, because otherwise we have a method declaration signature mismatch. But for it to work before 8.1, before 8.0, we can't have that return type. Well, we can't have return type full stop for 5.6, but we can't have return type mixed, which in this case is the one which has been added, because that wasn't introduced until PHP 8.0.
Yep.
So this is going to be challenging to solve if that exists in the WordPress code base. I suspect there will be a few.
Yeah, I suspect so.
But it'll be the smaller one. The bigger one is that passing null to non-nullable function parameters in PHP native functions, that's going to throw a deprecation error, a notice. And it's a deprecation notice. It will not fatal error.
It will not.
But I suspect we'll see some 10 to 20,000 of those notes on an average run of WordPress.
I agree.
Yeah, that is the scary number.
Yeah. We don't want to ship out a release that has 20,000 notices in an error report. That is just something we don't want to have. So it's
just one page load.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. So that is something we're going to have to take a look at to try to see how we can resolve that one too. Yeah. So we've got some big challenging type of work that we've got to do over the next coming months.
Yeah. So having said that, close off today?
I think so. Let's go ahead and end today, and we want to thank you for watching and joining in with us. If you have any follow-up questions for us, you can either come to the core-php channel and ask them there. Juliette or I will come in and answer your questions, as well as you can put them in the chat later on too, and I'll check YouTube and then bring them over if need be so we can get them answered for you.
Chat normally gets closed once the live stream gets closed on YouTube.
You actually can click, there's a button there that you can open it back up, and then you can comment down below. So just comment on the event, and then I'll keep an eye on it. It alerts me. So,
okay, that's good. Cool. Another thing is, come to the next session.
Yes, please.
Come to the next questions. And ask your questions while we're live streaming, and we will answer them there and then, and can possibly even pull up code and show you why, and look at the actual code where the question applies to,
Absolutely.
and work with you to hopefully create a bigger understanding of it.
You know, that could even be something that we do, schedule an actual office hours and invite the community to come and ask some PHP specific type of questions. That could be an interesting session where folks can come in and get some of our time to learn a little bit more about PHP and help them in their contributions.
Yeah, but I meant it initially
I know.
related to the session we've done today,
Yep,
and of course the session we'll do next time.
that's right.
Are we on again in 2 weeks' time?
I'm actually on vacation, so Shay
Okay.
and I will get together and we'll put a date together, and then I'll get it out for everybody so that you know ahead of time already. So thanks for joining us. We will see you again, or see you in core. Come join us there. Right.
Yay. Okay, bye bye.